My entitled brother is demanding that I pay for his dental surgery, even though he stole $4,000 from me months ago and has yet to pay me back. But after I told him I'm not doing this ever for him, he freaked out and somehow got the entire family involved. And now I feel cornered from all angles into a situation I want nothing to do with. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk? Holy crap, this first story is a weird one. The family in this situation are just awful and the brother is the worst of them all. So strap in for this one, dude. This is going to be cathartic for all of us out there who have crappy siblings who always take advantage of us. Because this story is definitely one of those situations, let me tell you something. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk, click the bell to turn on notifications, and with that, let's get started. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my brother and I have never been particularly close, but we got along fine all the way up until last year. I had been saving up for a new car for almost a year. My old car was literally falling apart, and it takes me about 40 minutes to get to work, so without a car, I simply would not have been able to make the commute. I kept part of the money at home in a metal box because I was planning to buy a used car from an old family acquaintance, and he insisted on cash payment and didn't want to deal with banks or transfers. About 6 months ago, my brother stayed over at my place after a drinking session because he was too lazy to drive across town. A couple days later, I noticed that money was missing from the box. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake somewhere, or maybe it got spent or forgotten, but then I counted everything again and I realized that nearly $4,000 was gone. Now, I asked my brother right away, and he started swearing that he hadn't taken anything. He was so confident that at one point, I even felt like an idiot for suspecting him in the first place and even apologized to him. But then my cousin told me that at the barbecue, my brother had been drunk and joking about how he was taxing the family because he had debts from betting. And it turned out he had blown money on sports bets for several months. I then cornered him and questioned him again. And at first he denied everything again, but then he lost his temper and blurted out that he was going to pay it all back. I then asked him where the money was, and he calmly replied that he had already lost almost all of it. He never offered a proper apology, and even my own mother asked me not to make a big deal out of it because he had supposedly just slipped up and was already having a hard time. You know, whatever that means. Well, after that, I practically stopped talking to him. He promised several times that he'd start paying back the debt as soon as he got his finances in order. But in 6 months, he hasn't transferred a single penny. Because of this, I had to take out a loan for a car instead of buying it outright. And now I'm paying more every month than I planned. Well, fast forward, and 3 days ago, he called me in the middle of the night. His voice sounded terrible. He said he had been ignoring a cracked tooth for several months because he didn't have insurance, and now half of his face is swollen. The dentist said the infection could spread if it isn't treated immediately. He was prescribed antibiotics, but the tooth still needs to be extracted or treated as soon as possible. And it's right at that moment he came to me asking for money. I then told him that after what he had done to me, I wouldn't give him another dollar. When I said this, he fell silent at first, and then he started saying that I was willing to watch my own brother suffer because of one mistake. But I replied to him by saying stealing $4,000 from me, lying to my face, and then pretending for 6 months that nothing had happened wasn't a mistake. And now as a result of all of this, my mom keeps calling me in tears, saying you're being way too cruel. My aunt even suggested reconciling us if I just pay for his treatment. But my mom is struggling financially herself after being laid off, and my aunt is helping her son with his studies. So for some reason, everyone decided that I'm the only one who should pay for it, all because I have a stable job. It also turned out that banks won't give my brother a loan anymore because of all of his debts. And the worst part is that had he just apologized properly back then and started paying me back little by little, I probably would have helped him out with no hesitation. But now it really feels like everyone suddenly remembers that family's important when things get bad for him. So am I the jerk here for not wanting to pay for anything and refusing him? Because I'm seriously pissed off about this and I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, your brother's an idiot. Seriously, he steals $4,000 from you and then says, oh, I'm gonna pay you back. And then months later, after never paying you back, he's like, bro, my tooth hurts, please pay for it. And it's like, dude, you're not getting another cent out of me. This is crazy behavior. No, of course you're not the jerk here, dude. Your family sucks. Your family outside of your brother, sure, they've all got their own issues going on and they can't pitch in to pay, but they're all out of their mind if they think oh yeah, if you just pay for this, it'll make everything better. Because no, it's not gonna make anything better because I'm still out $4,000. Plus I would be picking up the bill for this idiot's tooth to get removed. No, I'm not gonna do that. And it's dude, I completely understand where the original poster is coming from. If he had just paid me back on time and apologized and said, I'm really sorry I did that, I won't do it again. I would be willing to help pay for that. I'd be yeah, sure, I totally understand. I'm not a heartless monster, you need help. But this guy doesn't want help. He wants to take advantage of you. And that is super inappropriate, and that is something that should not be encouraged. It really seems like the entire family has put up up with the brother's like attitude and like the things he does, and they almost say like, yeah, don't like correct him because that'll just make things worse. Just give him what he wants and he'll be happy. But dude, that's not a good family member. And these kind of like toxic traits need to be corrected. You don't just let it slide for the sake of keeping the peace. Like, what does that even mean? There's no peace in my life when I'm giving up all this money. So no, you are not at fault here. Your family sucks, and anybody agreeing with your brother is completely in the wrong. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. My boyfriend is saying he's gonna leave me unless I confess to cheating, even though I never did. As he's claiming there's so much evidence stacked against me that I simply have to be cheating, even though I literally don't know what he's talking about and I just don't know how to fix this situation. Here's what's currently going on. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been together for a year and we are currently long distance. And I will say, he has had like trust issues due to being cheated on in past relationships, but we have slowly made progress over the past year on this. I was visiting him a few weeks ago and he brought up an incident from 2 months ago where he insists that he saw my location moving along a certain route on a certain day and time that is atypical of my route. And I gotta be honest, I do not remember driving this route, and I'm 100% confident that I didn't. I believe he's just like misremembering, but he would bet his life that he saw this. And he says he watched my location moving along this route for like 20 minutes. So in his mind, it wasn't a glitch or something like that. Well, I then let him look through my iPhone location data and he didn't find anything. But he says, well, that's not always accurate. He then says that it's suspicious that I don't remember where I was and has grilled me about this multiple times over the past weeks. There's also a 4-day gap in photos on my phone during that period, which he claims is suspicious because we couldn't find any other like 4-day gap in my phone. I said I may have taken pictures and deleted them because I like truly have no other explanation. He says logically these things added together is suspicious and that my explanations are not satisfactory. He insists that he knows what I did, and if I don't stop lying about it, he's going to end things and that he will stop loving me. But I truly just don't know what he's talking about. Like, I've never been unfaithful to him. I love him so much and it breaks my heart to hear him say these things. He's come up with like several narratives in his head about what might have happened, and he even said that it would make sense if he pushed me to cheat since he's been terrible to me in the past. He's even admitted to friends and family that he has not been a good boyfriend. The truth is, I was not on that route and nothing happened. There is nothing that would push me to cheat, but he refuses to believe me. He also says I'm gaslighting him by saying there's no way I was at this location and that I believe he's just misremembering. He's done similar things in the past where he's accused me of cheating and tried to like force a confession, but never to this degree. We were getting so much better with these issues where he would finally start trusting and believing me, but now out of nowhere this situation came up, and honestly it's the worst it's ever been. Okay, I gotta be honest with you. Anybody acting like this who's like, oh yeah, I'm your boyfriend, but also I don't trust you. Just confess that you're cheating, otherwise we're gonna break up. And it's like, dude, what is that gonna solve? If I do that, you're just gonna turn around and be like, I knew you were cheating, even though you literally weren't. Like, that is so annoying in my opinion. And that would be an unavoidable red flag in my opinion, especially if you guys are long distance. Like, holy crap, if you guys can't trust each other, more specifically, if he can't trust you, then dude, maybe you shouldn't have a relationship. Maybe you're the problem, and guess what? I really do think your boyfriend's the problem here. Like, basic trust and like believing your partner is really kind of like, I don't know, the bedrock of a relationship. And yeah, I totally get it. He's been cheated on in the past, but the original poster shouldn't be punished for that. Like, what's going on right now? So yeah, I don't think he's a good boyfriend at all. I think you can find someone way better than this, because the fact alone that he gave you some kind of weird ultimatum is more than enough for me to be like, okay, I'm bouncing out of this. Like, you don't need that kind of energy, and that is just really inappropriate. Today, I got yelled at by a mother on a 6-hour plane ride, all because I asked her child to stop kicking my seat after her child had already been doing that for literally 5 hours. Because this was truly exhausting and incredibly upsetting, and I just don't know how I could have handled this differently. Here's what happened. Okay, a few weeks ago, I was on a 6-hour plane ride and I sat in front of a 3-year-old child. Now, I'm not a monster. I try to be very patient with kids on planes, as I know their parents are usually doing the best they can and are probably way more stressed and way more panicked about their child misbehaving than I am. But with that being said, the child I was sitting in front of was kicking my seat non-stop for hours on end. And they were doing this purposely and pretty hard. However, mom was asking her to stop, so I just leaned forward and let it slide for the majority of the ride. I've had a lot of pretty egregious plane experiences where the parent isn't even trying, so at this point, even a modicum of effort is still appreciated. But as we got into the last hour of the flight, I started to get pretty annoyed. While I initially appreciated that the mom was asking her kid to stop, I was still getting pretty frustrated by the fact that this clearly wasn't working, and there were no further attempts beyond just saying, "Stop it, don't do that, you need to stop." She never took her kid for a walk up and down the aisle, never put her hand on the kid's leg to keep her from kicking. I was also slightly grumpy as I tried to get some sleep, but every time I was close to falling asleep, I would be jolted awake by a hard kick. Finally, as we're entering the last hour of the ride, the kid starts kicking as hard as she can. Mom isn't saying anything, so I just turn to the back. I don't really make eye contact with the kid or anything, but I just turn in the general direction so I can be heard, and I said in a very nice tone, "Please stop kicking my seat." Well, this turned out to be the worst move I could have possibly made. This mom loses it on me. She looks at me and says, "You do not speak to my child like that. She is only 3 years old." I then respond, again as politely as I can, "I understand that, but I did pay for this seat." And before I could continue, she interrupts me and says, "No, you do not ever speak to my child. I have asked her to stop." To which I said to her, "Yeah, I've heard it, and I really do appreciate that." She then goes on and says, "She is 3 years old. You speak to me. You don't get to tell my child not to kick your seat." I then said to her, "I said please, I was just trying to be polite." She then just keeps repeatedly telling me that I don't get to speak to her child, and I'm just repeating, "Okay, I'm sorry, I was trying to be polite." And keep in mind, I didn't really even speak to her kid. I just said it in their general direction. Not like I got up from my seat and made eye contact with a child or anything like that. But finally, I just turned around to get the interaction to end. And I even cried just a little bit. But I was comforted by the thought that I was polite throughout the entire interaction. And I really just don't think there was anything I could have done that would not have resulted in the mom being a jerk. I'm sure if I asked her instead of the child, I would have received the same treatment. Personally, I truly just don't see what I did as wrong. I was incredibly patient for 5 hours. I was very polite with my request. And I'm sorry, but if your child is old enough to be negatively impacting another person, then they're old enough to be told to stop by that person, especially if they're refusing to listen to their parents. Gentle parenting can be a good tool, but when it's not working, it's time to open up the toolbox back up and find something else. It seems like a recent trend that parents refuse to let their kids be corrected or even told off by anyone but themselves, and that is really just odd to me. I understand that kids will be kids, but I don't really see why that means I'm required to allow your kid to kick me for 5 hours and then never once ask her to stop. And what happens when that kid then enters school and goes out into the real world? How is your child going to learn to take correction from someone who isn't their parents if their parents won't even allow them to be spoken to? And who do you really think your child will grow up to be if nobody but you is allowed to correct them on their poor behavior? The whole thing was exhausting, and honestly, I hated every second of it. Okay, in my opinion, I think the original poster did this completely wrong. Like, the second that kid started kicking my seat, even 1 hour into the flight, I would have been like, "Okay, flight attendant, take care of this. I'm not doing this. I don't care anymore. I'm not putting up with that for another 5 hours. Screw that." Because sure, saying something in a calm manner is completely understandable, but I would much rather have a flight attendant be like, "Hey, lady, get your crap together," instead of getting dragged across the coals by this idiot. Who, by the way, this lady who has her kid is a terrible parent. You mean to tell me that you scheduled a 6-hour plane ride and you didn't do anything to make sure your kid was occupied? No coloring book, no toys, literally nothing that can occupy your time? That is 100% on you, lady. That's on nobody else. And I'm not kidding. I hate people like this who are like, "You don't ever talk to my child." Yes, my child's being a menace, and no, I'm not doing anything about it. So don't say anything to her ever again. She's only acting like that because she knows she's a crappy parent and she can't control her kid. That's all that's going on here. She knows she's in the wrong, but instead of just owning up to it and being like, "Oh, sorry about that, I'll get my kid to be quiet," she's taking it out on you as if you're the problem. It's like, no, lady, you're the problem, and so's your demon spawn. Control your stupid child, lady. I don't want to have to deal with that. So yes, in my opinion, next time I would absolutely go to the flight attendant. I would have them take care of it and not think twice about it, because this sounds obnoxious and incredibly exhausting. I can only imagine dealing with this. Am I the jerk for telling my niece that I won't drive 20 hours just to pick her up? Because what's being asked of me by my sister is really insane. And at this point, I'm being made to look like the villain, and I just don't know what to do here. Okay, I want to say that this title makes me sound like a jerk, but please let me explain. I'm a 38-year-old female, and I have had the custody of 2 out of the 3 of my nieces for the past 5 years. Their ages are 17 and 21. I have the oldest 2, and the youngest, who's 14 years old, still lives with my sister and my brother-in-law. The 2 oldest were kicked out 5 years ago because they complained too much allegedly, and they did what normal sisters do, like they fought. I then got a call asking if I would take them, and well, here we are today. I have done and paid for everything. School clothing, allowance, gas money, school supplies, prom dresses, graduation dresses, as well as anything else you can think of. My 21-year-old niece moved out 2 years ago and is currently living on her own a state away, and we're talking clear across the country from her parents. My sister's coming up in May for the 17-year-old's graduation, and my sister wants to take the 17-year-old over to the 21-year-old's house after she graduates so that all 3 sisters can be together for the first time in like 2 years. The last time they were together was when I paid to have the youngest flown to my house during Christmas, which was right before the oldest moved out. In fact, I've paid for nearly every vacation for the girls. I've flown them to see their parents and sister. I paid for gas and food to drive to where their parents live. I put us up in hotels. Like literally anything you can think of has come out of my bank account. Well, the real dilemma is that my sister thinks I should take the weekend off and go ahead and pick up my 17-year-old niece from my sister's house, which by the way, that is a 10-hour car ride one way, meaning that it's going to be 20 hours to get there and back home. There's also no local airport to just have her fly home. And so with that, I said no, but now I'm the jerk in this situation. My sister told me that I was being unreasonable. My youngest niece is upset that I won't do it, and the 17-year-old feels like, oh, you could make time to do this. But what's even worse about this is I already planned a trip next month for the 17-year-old and myself to travel to where her parents live to spend a week with them. But suddenly I'm the jerk because I won't do this last-minute 20-hour car ride for the girls just to all be together this one time. I suggested that my sister just bring her back here, and I was then met with like every excuse imaginable. She's too broke, she doesn't have the extra time off of work, and so on. So am I really the jerk, or is it fair that I'm saying no this one time because I really just don't know what to do? No, you're not the jerk. Your sister sucks. First off, she kicked her kids out of the house and put them under your roof because she couldn't handle it. Like, that's already strike number 12 in my opinion. Like, good lord, what a terrible sister and what a terrible, like, parent. Like, kids argue and fight, siblings especially. This is not that big of a deal. You don't need to kick them out of your house because of that. Like, holy crap, man. But for me, the fact that she's trying to be like, oh, you need to take 20 hours off of work and do this. You can do this over the weekend. What's the big deal? Like, dude, I don't know about anyone else, but driving 20 hours in like, what, 3 or like 2 days? That's exhausting. That is so unbelievably crazy exhausting. It's going to be expensive. You're going to be really tired by the end of it. And this is all added on to the fact that you've paid for everything in their lives. The sister in this situation hasn't stepped up once, and she's the actual mother. Like, what are we doing? So no, you're not the jerk. It is time for your sister to step up and be the parent that she's supposed to be. Because at this point, she's just taking advantage of you. And for me, this would be absolutely the last straw. Am I the jerk for correcting my boss during her thank you speech all about my contribution into the project she was taking credit for? Because literally I did everything involved in this, and she's legitimately over here trying to take pictures next to the CEO with my hard work all over the place. And now as a result, I'm kind of not sure what to do, and I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so I work at a really small company. We recently held a donation drive for a local youth center where teens from low-income families go after school. The center asked for backpacks, notebooks, socks, deodorant, toothpaste, toothbrushes, granola bars, and juice boxes, because many of the kids who go there right after school don't always have basic supplies at home. Now, I will be completely honest. Almost the entire organization of this whole thing fell on me. And this wasn't like officially mandated, but it just kind of turned out that way. I made a sign-up sheet, I sent people reminders, I picked up packages from lobbies and sorted items by category, I put together hygiene kits and arranged like delivery with the youth center, and I even personally delivered boxes last Saturday morning. My boss said great job a couple of times, and that was all of her involvement. Well, this Thursday we had a staff lunch, and it's here that she stood up and started talking about how happy she was that her little project had grown so much. Then she said that she personally coordinated the drive because local community matters. And I sat there waiting for her to at least say thank you to the team or even to me, but no, she didn't do any of that. Then our CEO said that he wanted to take a photo with her next to the boxes for LinkedIn, and she turned to me and told me to move the boxes so they'd look better. And that's when I got angry and I said, well, maybe the person who sorted and delivered all of this should be in the photo too. And when I said this, the atmosphere in the room got awkward. The CEO asked what I meant, and that's when I said I was glad the company had helped the youth center, but guess what? I was the one who handled the coordination. All of us donated something, and it wasn't really fair to call it a solo project. He then looked at her strangely and then tried to relieve the tension by saying that we all contributed to a great deed, and in the end, no photo was even made. But now my boss says that I made her look bad and that I should have talked to her privately. A couple of colleagues said that I was right, but the timing itself was a bad one. And sure, they might all be right, but the worst part started when she took over my work, when she dispensed donations from all of us, talked only about herself, and just asked me to move boxes for her fancy photos. So am I the jerk here? Like, did I make a mistake by correcting my boss? Because I'm honestly not sure what to do anymore. Okay, I gotta be completely honest. First off, you absolutely are in the right for correcting your boss, but dude, this was the wrong time to do it. Because in my opinion, and like other people have said in the comment section, you are probably gonna need to find another job. Like, this is probably not gonna work out anymore. And just for the record, I hate people who do this. They force you to do all the work. They say, oh, go do this right now. And then when it's time to like reap the benefits of it, they turn around and say, oh man, look at all the work that I did. This is something that I personally coordinated. This is great. And it's like, dude, you didn't do anything for this. What are we talking about? Give credit where credit is due, and you absolutely did nothing here. But with that, I think you really should have talked to her in private. You embarrassed her in front of the CEO, and I just don't think that's going to go over well. So no, you're not the jerk, but the timing really sucked, and this is probably not going to work out in your favor. An entitled jerk tries to force me out of business by suing me into oblivion, all because I broke up the monopoly he had in our area. But as a result, I won every single case this guy brought against me, leaving me and my fiance with a massive payout after he had to settle for a huge amount of money. Here's what happened. I'm 26 years old and I decided to open my own business this year. Moving forward in this post, I should point out that I am in a small town of maybe 1,000 people in the rural Midwest. Because of this, everyone has some sort of connection with somebody. We went to one of the liquor stores in the closest city 30 minutes away, which is a small city of about 8,000 people, and when we were grabbing some alcohol for a party, I was looking at the prices and I saw how insane the prices were. For a 6-pack of local beer, we were charged $15. Now, I was thinking about this and figured that I could probably make bank opening a liquor store. Back in February, I was furious about my awful job and thinking out loud how cool it would be to own my own business to a friend. My friend's mom happened to be the president of the local bank, and they told me, hey, with the pandemic, the bank has been struggling to find customers to give out loans. Right now, the bank is giving loans for cheap. A couple of weeks later, I went in and met with my friend's mom and pitched my idea with the research I had done on alcohol prices, potential demand, and estimated income. So then, as a result, I got a loan at a fantastic interest rate. After that, I bought a building, which happened to be the former bank, and hired my dad to help me renovate the building. My dad is a general contractor, and he gave me an excellent quote on materials and labor. After working everything out with the distributors, getting the proper license, and getting my paperwork I needed for the government, I was ready to open my liquor store in May. I had started taking out ads in the local newspaper advertising my store and my prices. When I was in talks with my distributor, I learned, even with inflation and everything else, the liquor stores in the city had like an 80% markup. I talked to a local business owner, and he suggested that I have around a 35% to a 40% markup. Because of this, I was significantly cheaper than the closest liquor store and had a much wider selection than the gas stations and small local stores nearby. Now, my hometown is near a national forest. As such, we have a ton of people who come up for weekends for recreational activities year-round. My first week, and that being the week before Memorial Weekend, right after opening, I had made $4,000 in profit, and it was great being my own boss. If someone was rude to me or my girlfriend, I would just say, oh, you could do business elsewhere. If someone says something awful about my girlfriend's ethnicity, well, they can pay me 15% more at the register. Did the gang and I run out of alcohol? Well, time to grab my keys and go to the store and get some more. That's not to say that it wasn't difficult running my own business, especially that my only employee was my girlfriend, and we were both working 6 or 7 10 to 12-hour days a week. I was both manager, accountant, and cashier. But man, it's so much nicer knowing I can tell someone to pound sand for being a jerk. But trust me, all of our troubles were just beginning, as things took a turn in a way that I honestly never expected. A couple of weeks after Memorial Day, some old guy walks into my store a couple of minutes after I opened. He seemed friendly friendly enough, but eventually he offered to buy my store. I'm not going to say the amount, but it wouldn't have even covered my principal on the loan. I then rejected the proposal outright and refused to negotiate the sum any higher. He then walked out of my store and said, "Well, you'll be sorry you rejected that offer." The next month, a guy walked into my store and asked if I was the owner. After saying yes, I was informed that my business was being sued by this random guy I never heard of for libel. After he left, I was freaking out, and I decided that I was going to close early. When I got home, I Googled the guy, and I soon saw a picture of the guy that tried to buy my store. It turns out that that is the guy who owns both the liquor stores in the nearby city. It also just so happens that he is on city council. With a little bit further digging, I learned that this city has an ordinance that reads, "Any business institution that does not fulfill the definition of a restaurant, a tavern, or liquor dispensary will be excluded from obtaining a license for the sale of alcohol." Later, I discovered that the same guy happens to be the head of the board which approves liquor license. And honestly, I just love small town corruption. Either way, I had a major issue. My maternal uncle happens to be a lawyer in a neighboring state, so I decided to call him and try and get some kind of legal advice. I talked to him and I read the documents that I had been handed and served over the phone and the research that I had done. After receiving all of the information I had read off, I was expecting to get some kind of advice, but instead I heard him say, "Hang on, I've got to make a call," and he then hung up. At this point, I'm freaking out, and I was about to post online to try and figure things out in another place, and honestly, I just kind of wanted someone to tell me that it was going to be okay, and that I didn't need to crawl to this guy on my hands and knees. Well, eventually my uncle called me back. He said to me, "Hey, I just got off the phone with my partner, and he agreed that we can take your case pro bono. If you would like to accept, we can discuss this at my office tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Well, this is how I learned that my uncle is on the bar in 3 different states. So we meet and we discuss the case, and it turns out that the guy filed a libel suit against my business based on the ads I took out in the local newspapers. He claimed that my ads were targeted to damage his reputation and his business's reputation. There were a few other things that I had no idea what was being referenced, but my uncle told me that we would win this case no problem. Well, 3 weeks later and the case is dismissed. But after that, my uncle says the following: "People like that piece of work will likely try to file another suit against you, and if that happens, call me and I promise I will help." Well, the very next day I got served again, but this time I am the defendant. And this is not about my store, but instead it's me. I swear to God, I look at the documentation and the only thing that changed was instead of my business's name, mine is listed as the defendant. And this is literally the same thing that happens before, because 4 weeks later the case is dismissed. And over the next 3 months, I was sued just as many times. Before the 5th case's hearing, we had a settlement meeting. My uncle, the judge, the guy suing me, his lawyer, a bailiff, and I were all sitting in this room. The judge says, "You two have been in court 4 times already. Is there any way we could come to an agreement that will stop this cycle of faulty litigation?" The guy's lawyer then says they have an offer and hand it to my uncle, who then hands it to me. It essentially reads that he'll stop all litigation if I sell my business for about 30% of the remaining loan principal. I then outright rejected the offer and made a counteroffer instead. I said, "If you drop this case, I won't sue you for harassment." He then busts out laughing. "Sue me? With what money? The legal fees alone ought to have drained you. You should be happy I chose to extend this offer and not sue you into bankruptcy and buy that crappy store from the bank when you foreclose." Well, the judge, the bailiff, and the guy's own lawyer were all looking at him aghast for saying the silent part out loud about the real reason why I was getting sued. My uncle then straight up said to him, "Oh, I'm sorry. Apparently you were never told. I've taken all of my nephew's cases pro bono. The only money he has spent on your litigations is gas. And bluntly, sir, I think your outburst has ensured a suit against you." After that, we just left, and I was then informed a few days later that the litigation was dropped. Well, right now my uncle and I are talking about the future suit against this guy. I want to sue this guy for a very high amount to try and get press attention on this guy and his sketchy actions. Although my uncle warned me that we'll need to be careful because if we set the damages too high, it'll look like we're being vindictive in some kind of way. This suit won't be pro bono, but after getting sued 5 times for free, essentially, I'm not going to complain. Looking back on this, I'm so thankful that my friends and family supported me the entire way, especially my uncle, because without my uncle, I would have absolutely lost my entire business. Before we go any further, the original poster has an update that they would like to share. Here's what they had to say a year after all of this went down. Okay, so this is a follow-up post that I made last year. For reference, last year I opened a liquor store with my girlfriend, who is now my fiance, in my hometown. The nearby city had a few liquor stores run by a city councilman, who is the person who controls who gets liquor license in said city. With me being 40 minutes away, he was losing business and offered to buy my store. Well, I refused and instead, he tried to sue me for libel. He attempted to do this for half a year, where he continued to sue me, my business, or anything else he could until it was thrown out with contempt. Fortunately, I was able to get my lawyer to take the case pro bono, so I didn't get buried in legal fees as the guy intended. And after that, my lawyer and I began to file suit against the guy. So that's where we left off a while ago. As of now, the case is over and I can finally talk about it. So to first explain why I didn't post any updates previously, when I filed the lawsuit, my lawyer said to not post anything about it online. I don't think that this had anything to do with the original post, but what he told me was that if the opposing counsel found a post and was able to link it back to me, they could argue that I was only filing suit to gain online clout. But now the court case is over, so I can now talk to you guys. We filed the complaint about a month after the last case against me was dismissed, and what we filed for was multiple accounts of malicious misuse of due process. After filing the complaint, we needed to serve the papers to the guy. Now, someone had to have told him because he dodged getting served for multiple weeks. The only reason the process server was able to serve him was because there was a meeting to approve the transfer of liquor license between two businesses in the city, which if you think about it is really ironic. He and his lawyers answered the complaint and said everything in the complaint and the summons was a deliberate misrepresentation of the facts. None of the suits filed against me were in any way malicious, but given that the only thing that changed between most of the suits was the named defendant, pretty much disproves all of that. He then went on to say that this current suit was simply a move by me to get revenge on him for trying to protect his business. And pretty much the entire answer was just him saying, "No, you did this, not me." After that, we moved into discovery, which I will talk about in a minute. Through the discovery process, there were a couple of motions for dismissal by the defendant's counsel. The first one was just in general that all the facts are wrong, and this was a lawsuit filed in bad faith. This was immediately thrown out by the judge because the four suits being filed back to back, with only the defendant being changed, indicated that this was potentially a malicious lawsuit. The second motion was that these weren't malicious because the defendants were different. Effectively, the argument is that if it's the same defendant, then it would be a malicious suit. But because the defendant kept getting changed from suit to suit, that means that there was a legitimate complaint that they were trying to get solved, which technically would be legal and I would have no standing. However, the judge acknowledged that while the argument is legally sound, if you simply look at the wording of the law, it completely violates the spirit that is written within it, and the actions of the defendant only serve to confirm that the previous lawsuits were filed in bad faith. So then the motion was tossed out of court. Later, during discovery, the defendant filed for a venue change, and it seems how we filed in my local court, they argued that the local jury would be biased towards me, and this got dismissed as well because they forgot to ask for a jury trial. We were perfectly fine with proceeding with a bench trial, so we didn't ask for a jury. The judge decided then that because they didn't request a jury, a venue change would not offer any significant change in the trial. They then used that decision and some history I have with the same judge to appeal to the state court to dismiss the case, but they refused. So anyways, back to discovery. The whole process was extremely slow, and we were still in the middle of discovery when we decided to settle. We had received multiple settlement offers up to that point and rejected every single one of them. But at the end of November, the defendant decided to fire the manager of one of his businesses. The former manager then decided to turn over some text messages to the court. You see, we requested all communications about the malicious filings from last year that the defendant had made, and that included any text messages. That showed that neither counsel nor the defendant did the proper diligence to comply with discovery. The defense was then able to get the text removed from the evidence. And while the text might not have been able to be used as evidence if we had proceeded with trial, you can't erase that you hid evidence from the judge's memory. And trust me, they don't tend to take that very well. With this coming to light, the chicanery that the defendant had been pulling, the judge was just over all of this at this point. Our lawyers had to meet with the judge at the beginning of this month in December, where the defense's counsel was reprimanded. After this, the defendant offered a really big settlement, and after my fiance and I discussed it, we decided to accept the offer. Our wedding is now getting closer, and frankly, we don't want to deal with the court stuff anymore. The whole trial process was still months away, and there wasn't any guarantee that we would have gotten any more money. Unfortunately, it's not the nuclear revenge that me and my fiance were hoping for, and although the settlement did pay the remainder of my loan, we will have a nice chunk chunk of money left over as a result of it. Wow, this is a crazy situation. First of all, that guy who owned that other business is a complete scumbag. Like seriously, look at what he tried to do to the original poster and his family. He literally made up multiple lawsuits just to try and get this guy taken down, and he even admits to that in the meeting itself. That must have been a nightmare, and I can only imagine going through that so many times while still trying to maintain some semblance of sanity. So good for you and your uncle for making sure that you came out on top, because this guy's behavior was completely uncalled for. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not sharing the parking spot with my roommate, even though we agreed that that spot would belong to me while we're living in a place that I don't want to live in? Because right now they're trying to go back on our deal, and it's honestly stressing me out beyond end. Here's what happened. Okay, so my roommate and I are in college, and we moved into an apartment for the school year. When we were touring places last year, my roommate shut down every place we toured except for one because it didn't have the things that she wanted, namely a washer and dryer unit, walk-in closet bedroom, as well as a certain size living room that she was looking for. The one place that she liked, I eventually agreed to live in with one requirement. I would get the one parking spot for the school years and she would get it for the summers. And literally, this was my only requirement to live in a place that I didn't like. Fast forward 8 months and we re-signed the lease to live in the same apartment again. Then, out of nowhere, my roommate, who doesn't even have a car or off-campus job by the way, mentioned splitting a street parking pass for the next school year so that we could share the spot, and that she wanted to start in March, even though summer doesn't start until April 28th. She is getting a free car for the summer and school year next year from her boyfriend, and just randomly brought it up like this was normal and part of the agreement. When I mentioned to her that our agreement and my only thing I needed was the parking spot for the school years, which may not be fair, but she agreed to it, she said that only applied for 1 year, as if that was some kind of obvious thing. She waited until we signed the lease to have this conversation, and I honestly would have looked somewhere else to live that had 2 parking spaces if I knew this was what she was thinking. I compromised with her on literally everything because we are friends. She keeps the heat on so high because she's cold. She got the pick of the bathroom that she wanted. She has her boyfriend over every day and I never ever complain. I'm waiting for her to bring up the conversation again to put my foot down and say I'm not street parking for the school year or even splitting the spot for the school year, and I will offer her $150 for the spot considering a street parking permit is $25. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because this honestly is incredibly annoying. No, you're not the jerk at all. The fact that your friend did this right after you signed the lease, like that is crazy and honestly so toxic, because they clearly knew what they were doing. They did this on purpose, and they did this in such a way where it's like, oh yeah, you have no choice but to agree, because it really sounds like they're gonna try to do this pretty much no matter what, and that really is not fair for you. So no, you would not be the jerk by saying you don't want to share this spot, because this is what you originally agreed on, and the fact that they don't want to honor that, in my opinion, is incredibly annoying. Someone from my work is spreading a rumor that I cheated on my girlfriend, and it is now ruining my relationship, and I now feel at such a loss that at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I will preface this by saying that my girlfriend and I have been in a loving relationship for over 4 years. We live together and we have never had any significant issues before. My girlfriend and I attended a housewarming for one of my coworkers on the weekend. At this party was a woman that I had met before at a previous work event, and she was friends with my coworkers who was hosting the party and also worked in our industry. About a couple of hours in, she comes over to me and my girlfriend, turns to her and says, "I'm sorry, but I can't sit here and watch this anymore. Your boyfriend cheated on you." Well, we were both shocked. My girlfriend doesn't say much and I protest my innocence. She goes on to say that I had hooked up with a different friend of hers at that work event that we met at, and apparently her friend told her this on their way home. Now, I did not know who she was talking about and didn't even recognize the name of the friend. It's possible I met her as well, but it would have been only for like a brief moment. My girlfriend takes my side of the argument, and we awkwardly leave a little bit after that, mostly because I was so angry. It's been 3 days ever since then, and things are weird. The vibes in our house are completely off. We aren't talking like we used to. We aren't texting each other throughout the day. We aren't laughing or telling stories. We've had conversations about it, but all I can do is deny cheating, which doesn't seem to make a difference, which is understandable. She says that she believes me, but I think there's a part of her that keeps saying, well, what if he's lying? And that thought's crept its way in and it won't leave. What can I do from here to prove that nothing happened and get my relationship back to where it was? It almost seems like it would be easier if I had cheated, so I could admit it and we could potentially move forward. My whole office seems to think that I'm a cheater too, which isn't nice. And lastly, can anything be done about this person I don't know also making stuff up about me. What should I do? Okay, honestly, first and foremost, it's impossible to prove that you didn't cheat because, my God, the fact that this is even becoming like a rumor is proof that you work in a hostile work environment. And also, I think it might be time to go to human resources and explain just that. If I was in your shoes, I would be reporting the person who's spreading lies about you and be like, look, this is not okay. Because seriously, accusations like this are insidious and so absolutely uncalled for. So honestly, I really hope this gets worked out for you because this is something I can't imagine living through, especially when you know for a fact that you haven't done anything wrong. Am I the jerk for not inviting my stepmother to my wedding after enduring so many years of her mistreating me and the rest of my family? Because right now my dad is not taking this well, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my parents divorced when I was very young. My father cheated on my mother with his now wife. Ever since I was a child, she was never nice to me. She constantly made fun of me and my mother, who she never met, and she made awful comments about my mom's side of the family and deceased relatives. She was awful to me emotionally, made fun of my body and my clothing, called me and my mother names, and she also never allows my father and I to spend time alone together. Most recently, she banned me from their house after reading a text message that I sent to my dad, stating that she does not respect my boundaries and doesn't understand what the role of a stepmother should be. She also took down every photo of me in their home. My relationship with my dad has always been rocky. He was never there physically, emotionally, or financially for me. They have a son together who is 10 years younger than me. However, she kicked him out of the house several times since he was 13 and often gets in screaming matches with my dad in front of him. This happened again about a month ago, and my brother told me that he thought they were getting divorced. My dad said she wouldn't be at the wedding, and of course, about a week ago, they made up, but my brother is deeply hurt and is not speaking to her, and it was then that he told me not to invite her to the wedding. I told my dad this, and that given the years of mistreatment, neither me nor my fiance want her there. He said he cannot comply with that, and if she isn't invited, then he's not coming along either, and it will prevent his side of the family from coming, which I didn't know is entirely accurate as no one in his family can stand her. I eventually compromised and said that she can come if she sits a few rows back, which I've seen at weddings of others with divorced parents. He is not happy with that either and will not give me a straight answer. In fact, he keeps dismissing me. I don't feel like she deserves to be there, and if that means my dad doesn't come, then so be it. I compromised my own wishes to even invite her in the first place. She booked a hotel room months ago for this wedding, and I was previously against my will, giving her an invite, but the recent events with my brother and interactions with my father make me want to stand my ground. She feels she had the right to be there because she is his wife. So honestly, am I the jerk for not extending an invite to her? Because at this point, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. I've said it once and I'll say it 1,000 times. This is your wedding, so you absolutely get to decide who is and isn't there. And based on the current drama, it seems like this is not someone you want at your wedding in the first place. So in my opinion, I think you are completely justified. My entitled sister and her partner scammed me and my parents out of $17,000 under the deliberate lie that they would be using that money for their wedding venue. But after I found out that they used that money to fly my sister's in-laws out to their wedding, I'm now incredibly hurt, and I'm deciding to back out of their wedding altogether. Here's what happened. So my younger sister, who we will call Katie, and her partner, who we will call Chris, are getting married in April in Dubai. She has always wanted an extravagant wedding and is going all out on this. So the wedding is happening over 4 days. There are 70 guests, but they want us, namely me, my husband, and my parents, to stay in the same hotel with them along with their bridesmaids and groomsmen. Now the hotel is pretty fancy, so with flights, it's going to cost us over $2,900 each. Chris's family are also staying in the hotel, which includes his parents, 2 brothers, and his nephew. Now they are well off. I don't know exactly how much they earn combined, but I know Katie is on $88,000 a year, and she is the lower earner. But about 6 months ago, Chris and Katie came to us and asked to borrow $17,000 more. They stressed it would be a loan paid over time and said the venue had increased the price. They also said that Dubai laws were different and all this other stuff. Basically, they either paid this money or they lost the lot. And well, we believe them. And I offered to loan $7,000 and my parents the other $10,000. Well, long story short, I have since found out through someone else that the $17,000 wasn't for the venue. It was for Chris's family to fly over. They saw how much it was going to be, didn't want to pay, and refused to go. I then decided to ask Katie, and she confirmed. So my first question was if they were going to pay for his parents, and why not just pay for ours? I mean, I would never have expected them to pay for me, even if we couldn't afford it. I would have just wished them well and stayed at home. And her answer to this was to say, because they can afford it. She then got very defensive and said this was the fairest way she could think of doing it. It's hard enough to plan a wedding and all this other stuff. But when I asked if you genuinely thought this was the fairest way of doing it, why did you lie about what the $17,000 was used for and say it was for venue issues? Well, she couldn't answer the question. My parents are aware and they are very disappointed that they lied, but have said that they are still attending. But you know what? I have backed out. To me, it feels like my parents are being taken advantage of. And if they couldn't afford to pay for both our family and Chris's parents and his brothers and nephew, then they should not have just paid for the 4 parents or no one at all. And they especially shouldn't have lied about it. Katie and Chris keep calling and asking me to attend, saying I'm making them feel bad and ruining their day. But the whole thing just feels icky to me. I'm genuinely an open book, so be brutal with me. Am I the jerk in this situation? Should I just suck it up and go, or is this something I should stand my ground on? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, no, you are not the jerk for not going to this stupid wedding. Katie and Chris lied about what that money was going to be used for, and that in and of itself off the bat makes me never want to trust them ever again. Like they basically scammed you and your parents out of $17,000 under the assumption that they were using that money for the venue, when in reality they were lying and used it for something else. Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so shady. And the fact that they're trying to be like, oh, come on, stop it, you're making us feel bad. You're ruining our special day. It's like, hold on, let's be clear here. You did not ruin anything about this day. They ruined it themselves the second they lied to you about what they were using that money for. So no, of course you're not the jerk. Your sister and her husband are absolute dirtbags for the way they handled that money. And the fact that they scammed you and your parents out of $17,000, in my opinion, is unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling our brother-in-law that we needed some space, while also providing a list of troubling behavior that we've had issues with over the last year? Because right now we are so frustrated and we don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my husband have been together for 13 years. He has a younger brother who has always liked solitude and enjoys doing anything that he wants whenever he wants. He's mentioned never wanting to have a partner or kids and thinks a life of compromise sounds awful. On principle, this is fine. March to the beat of your own drum, like that is totally okay. Unfortunately, we feel this has morphed into unkind behavior towards our child who is 6 years old. We like to spend as much time as we can with family and enjoy inviting our brother-in-law out to fun events with us, often at our own expense. Again, this is fine because we invite him to do this with us, and we have never asked my brother-in-law to pay for us to have a night out. However, over the past year, there have been several instances where my brother-in-law has caused issues with our child. At times, I've seen him antagonize and mock our child to the point of tears, and at one point, stated that his other nieces and nephews and even the cat are his favorites and not them. We've confronted him about his behavior when this happens, and always try to build our child's confidence back up after the fact. But it's been heartbreaking to hear our 6-year-old ask why my brother-in-law doesn't like him. Apart from how he treats our child, we also feel that he's been unkind to us, giving us the silent treatment for an entire night after taking a gift that he wanted in a Yankee swap. And for additional context, we invited him to a second Christmas with family and had additional gifts for him under the tree the next morning. He only started talking to us again once he found out he had other gifts. Other examples include yelling at us while playing cooperative video games because we didn't do something he wanted to in the game, and threatening to leave because we didn't want to play the game that he wanted. Most recently, he told us about a birthday plan he had that we weren't invited to, and this was a bit hurtful to hear. We told him it made us upset that we weren't invited, and he suggested making a different birthday plan so we could be included. After that, he ended up messaging us to let us know that he was going back to the original plan, and it would unfortunately be on a day I work, and it was going to be a child-free event, so neither of us could go. He extended the invite, but it still felt like a slap in the face after he knew that we were upset about being unincluded. From our perspective, extending an invitation to an event you know we cannot attend is not a real invitation. Following the birthday event, we wrote a message explaining how we felt, listing some of the examples above, and that we wanted some time to reassess our relationship. After a few days, he wrote back calling us immature, saying that we are mentally ill, that he didn't realize our relationship was transactional, and that he has ADHD, so he prefers not to be around kids. According to him, mentally stable people do not write messages like that, and we should unpack these things with a therapist rather than hashing out stuff that already happened. So truly, are we the jerks for trying to set some kind of boundary? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. This really is some troubling behavior, especially him making your 6-year-old feel like garbage. In my opinion, there's very few reasons that should ever happen, and it doesn't sound like any of those are being listed, so like, what is his problem? I mean, I can understand a kid being annoying, but for you to be like, oh, I like literally everybody better better than you. Like, that sucks, and that really is not a good precedent to set for a kid. And in my opinion, that alone is more than enough reason to be like, okay, we need to take a step back from this guy. Because obviously, this is delving into some toxic territory that, in my opinion, cannot be overlooked. So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario, because I honestly think that setting up some kind of distance will be better for everybody in the end. Am I the jerk for using the shared space way too much in the house that I rent from two other guys? Because right now, I feel like I'm justified, but at the same time, I can't help but feel that I might have done something wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live in an apartment with two other guys, and we're all in our late 20s. We pay equal rent, and the shared spaces, namely the kitchen and the living room, are open to everybody to use. I use the common area a lot to study and work because my room is too cramped for a proper setup. I'm doing a master's degree at the moment, so I am home more than they are. The other day, one of my roommates pulled me aside and said he felt uncomfortable with me always being there. He admitted I have every right to use the space, but said it's gotten to the point where he and other roommates feel like they can't fully relax when I'm around. He suggested that I should move to my room more often and even asked if I had noticed him being annoyed about it, which I hadn't. I told him that I don't mind it at all if they use the kitchen while I'm working at the table or even sitting on the couches nearby. I'm not stopping them from cooking or making noise or using the space how they want. Then he made a comment about how he figured he could reason with me, which I felt a bit off. Like he was expecting me to just agree with him. He also suggested I check with the guy who had my room last year since he managed with a small desk. But my situation is different. I have more work to do from home, and I don't think that I should have to cram into a space that doesn't work just because he thinks it would make things more comfortable for him. We've had some disagreements before about things like shared chores and personal space, so I'm wondering if this is just another one of those things or if I'm actually being inconsiderate. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I kind of think you're being the jerk here because the way you're going about this is all wrong. Your roommate is coming to you in a rational way and saying, look, we feel like you're taking up way too much space and we think that it might be better for you to find a small desk for your room or something like that. And instead of just accommodating that and being like, oh, I'm so sorry, let me split my time a little bit more, it seems like you're almost like doubling down and being like, no, you guys can be in here just as much as I am. And to that end, I definitely think you're being the jerk, and I think you really need to be more considerate of the people you live with. Because at the moment, I really think, in my opinion, you're not thinking about your roommates nearly enough. Today, I messed up by almost fainting and embarrassing my friend at an Orangetheory gym, and I honestly feel so humiliated after that incident. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of backstory, I was invited by my good college friend to go to her local Orangetheory gym as she had found out there was a deal for a special tryout class. I can't remember if it was free or if there was a small fee, but it would be our first time going to this gym, and we could decide whether we wanted a gym membership or not after the class. So I agreed, and she helped me sign up for the event. So I knew from past experience that I would need to eat something before going to work out at this gym to avoid any possibility of blacking out. For a bit of context, I have nearly fainted twice in my life. Once when I was in high school and had a habit of skipping lunch, which was usually okay since I would eat when I got home, but that fateful day I had fencing practice afterwards. The second time was a few years later, and the same college friend had invited me to attend a cycling class held on campus. I think I did eat, but I did not eat enough to sustain me after the intense exercise. I did persevere and finish the class before anyone noticed something might be wrong and went to eat with a friend afterwards. Both of these times, my vision was flickering between black and white while sweating profusely. Anyways, moving on to the event with Orangetheory, I woke up late, but I did make sure to eat something given my prior record. I met with my friend and we joined the class and started exercising. We used a bunch of the machines and did a lot of cardio, and the trainer was very good. My friend kept checking on me and was surprised that I was keeping up since I don't normally do much exercise. I had a strong determination and willpower that kept me going, but that was my downfall as I don't know my limits. About 30 to 40 minutes in, we moved on to doing some more chill exercises and I sat down to recover for a bit, and that was my mistake. The very moment I stopped to catch my breath while sitting on the floor, I started seeing everything in my vision with a blood red hue, and all of the voices sounded far away with some things moving in slow motion. I was super pale and sweating profusely. I heard my friends asking if I was okay, and I also heard another girl who was in the class saying that I should lay down, and someone pushed my shoulder so that I could lay down. I kept trying to tell people around me that I was fine, but words were not escaping my mouth. Someone then called the paramedics and they came to check on me. By the time they came around, I had recovered enough to say that I did not want an ambulance. My head was blaring with sirens from the potential cost of medical bills, and I think the trainer had given me some kind of electrolyte drink as well. The girl that had told me to lie down had also said that it looked like I was having a seizure, but I'm not sure about that. The class had also been interrupted, but the good thing was that it was near the end, and we had basically tried out all of the machines and done done the majority of the exercises. I felt extremely bad for inconveniencing everybody, and my friend and I left to get some food at a restaurant afterwards. And obviously, we never went back because that was truly embarrassing. Oh man, I completely understand where you're coming from because something like that's happened to me once, where I was at a gym and I did not eat or drink properly, and I very nearly passed out in the locker room. It didn't get as far as what you went through, but man, that is not a fun feeling. It is nauseating, you feel awful afterwards, and you really just want to get out of there because you are so embarrassed. So yeah, I definitely know where you're coming from because this really can be incredibly embarrassing. My boyfriend's laziness and unwillingness to get a job is ruining our lives, and I'm now honestly considering breaking up with him because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for 1 year, and I'm currently in university in my last semester. We're both currently unemployed, but my boyfriend graduated from trade school about 2 years ago and hasn't gone to work ever since then. We are both supported by our parents, which is embarrassing, and I see that I'm a bit of a hypocrite, but it's not just that he doesn't work. My boyfriend doesn't like to go outside. He spends most of the day playing video games, and for the past few months, he's gotten really into League of Legends, which for those who don't know, are games played with other people online, and a round lasts like 30 minutes and sometimes up to an hour at a time. He plays for probably 6 hours a day, if not more, especially right in the morning. He does also play the drums, maybe like 2 hours a day, which is a good thing, but I think he's also depressed. I've suggested going for walks, bringing light into the room, seeing someone, but none of which is something he's willing to do. He has applied for jobs on Indeed, but he's never gotten a call back. He also won't go out to give his CVs as I have suggested. About a month ago, I was able to convince him to do the forklift course that he had been talking about, and yesterday he had the online portion. Well, he realized that it's dangerous, and so now he's not going to pursue a job in that. Around that time, I convinced him to do that. Our friend said that he's going to open a store and hire my boyfriend, which I said to my boyfriend afterwards that realistically that's not going to happen. But of course he didn't listen to me and stopped applying for jobs because of it. Yesterday, he finally learned that his friend might not actually hire him, and he's now very upset. In any other circumstance, I would break up with him. However, we were best friends since before we started dating, and during that time, we made an agreement to get married so that he can get a green card to live with me in the States. For reference, we both are currently living in Canada. He's Brazilian and I'm American. I feel so guilty about all of this. If I don't stay with him, he will most likely have to go back, as he hasn't been working these past few years, that once his visa is over in 2026, he won't be able to renew it. But my life is slipping away. We share a basement studio apartment, and he hates having the lights on and the windows open for light. I used to go for walks, explore the city. I would go out and chat with people, but he is so jealous that I can't even really make friends. I was invited to a party yesterday by a friend in my class, but he didn't want me to go because he's worried other guys would flirt with me, so I didn't. He is so in love with me, so sweet and gentle, and I know that he will always be loyal. And I also love him, but I'm frankly losing attraction because of all of this. Our lease is not up until September, but it's in his name. However, I don't want to leave and force his family to pay for the whole place, as that isn't fair. So honestly, I feel like I'm at such a loss at this point, and I really don't know what to do. Man, it really sounds like your boyfriend needs to get off his butt and get to work. Like, this guy clearly doesn't get it. If he doesn't get off his butt and start working, he literally is gonna lose his visa. Like, if that doesn't set his hair on fire to be like, okay, I've got to get to work, then I seriously just don't know what will. And I really think the original poster gets this. They understand that their boyfriend is going nowhere and their life is slipping away. So they either need to do something quick or else it's all gonna fall apart. And I don't blame you for feeling this way. So in my opinion, either your boyfriend gets to work or else this is not going to work, because you have every right to be in a secure relationship. Am I the jerk for telling my grandmother not to wear a white dress at my wedding? Because right now she is very upset and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I recently got engaged to my boyfriend of 2.5 years. For some context, my grandma raised me, but I've always been closer to my mom because my grandma is your stereotypical Christian conservative who, to put it bluntly, always thinks that she's right. She's gotten better over the years, but she still has a lot of growing to do in my opinion. Anyways, when I told my mom about the engagement, she was over the moon. After talking for a bit, she asked if I wanted to see some pictures from when I was a kid or before I was born. My mom is very much the sentimental type and loves to take and show pictures as needed. Now, I of course said yes. As we're flipping through the pictures, we came across one of my uncle's weddings. In it was my uncle and his now ex-wife, my dad, his brother, and my grandma. Now, I thought it was sweet until I noticed that my grandma was wearing a long white dress with a beaded top, almost like a wedding dress. Now, this struck me as odd, just because, well, wouldn't you feel weird with someone else wearing white at your wedding? A few days later, I talked to my fiance about this, and he told me that if it was a true concern, I should talk to her about it. I was already planning on doing so, but I needed that final push. So when I went to her house, house, I told her about the engagement itself. She's never liked my boyfriend only because he smokes, so she wasn't too thrilled about it, but she was accepting. I told her I had seen a picture of her at my uncle's wedding wearing a white dress and how I wouldn't feel comfortable with her doing the same at mine. Well, I guess I was spot on, because she got super defensive, saying that I was selfish and inconsiderate and that it wasn't a big deal. Personally, I wanted to be the only one wearing white because I'm paying hundreds if not thousands of dollars for a wedding dress. I would like to just stand out, even if I am the bride. It just feels kind of disrespectful. And here's where I think I might be the jerk. I got annoyed with her for calling me names and berating me about my relationship. And for reference, she was also bashing my fiance in the process. It might have been selfish for me to say, but I said something along the lines of, "It is my day, and if you can't do this one thing, then maybe you shouldn't come at all." Now, both of us were very heated in this moment, but I think I went a little too far looking back. She then told me to get out, and we haven't spoken ever since then. My fiance reassured me and said that if it was important to me, then it should have been important to her. This happened a little bit over a week ago, and I just need some outside opinions. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh man, no, this is so weird in my opinion. It should be a given that you don't wear white at someone else's wedding, especially not a white dress. Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so weird and honestly just so uncalled for. So in my opinion, I don't think you're being unreasonable at all. This is your wedding and you have every right to be the only person in a white dress. And the fact that your grandma can't understand that is honestly so stupid. Because in my opinion, you are definitely not being selfish or inconsiderate. Am I the jerk for getting angry with my friends for backing out of a trip after I paid for their tickets? Because right now I'm still very pissed off and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been planning a trip with my close friend group to visit New Orleans during carnival season. There is 5 of us in total, but for right now, I'm just gonna focus on my friends who I will name Ray and Sam. This trip has been in the works for over a year at this point, including hotel reservations, planning on where to go, etc. Obviously, this also included flight tickets, of which I paid for myself and my boyfriend, who is among the 5 of us going. Things started to turn south a bit a few weeks ago when Sam let us know that he didn't have the immediate funds to cover his flight ticket, and so likely would not be able to go. So collectively as a group, we offered to split the cost in order for Sam to go, with the condition that he paid us all back when he could afford it, which was fine until 3 nights ago, when Ray also let me know that she hadn't booked her ticket yet. I will preface this by saying that Ray had a very valid reason for not booking, which is due to some family issues that I do not want to share on her behalf. Nevertheless, I was a bit upset that this wasn't communicated sooner. Well, trying to be a good friend, I offered to front the cost of her ticket with the stipulation that she paid me back within the next few weeks. I wasn't sweating the cost of the ticket, but it was nevertheless a very expensive ticket. Now, I thought everything was settled, to the point where I was coordinating with them on when to pick up for arrival at the airport. It is at this time that Ray informs me that she is thinking about backing out of the trip, all due to being overwhelmed with work and school-related responsibilities. This is also a sentiment which was also shared by Sam, who proceeded to question whether or not he might pull out as well. At this point, I simply couldn't take it and ended up blowing up on the both of them. And quite honestly, I don't know if I feel bad for doing so. While I completely understand that things happen and come up, I can't help but feel that my own finances and the stress of coordinating the trip on their behalf is being taken advantage of. Moreover, because the flights are so close to departure, I am unable to get a refund. So I'm still out of the money I've put down for this trip until they pay me back for it. So seriously, does anyone think I'm the jerk for being angry with them over this? My boyfriend thinks I shouldn't be so hard on them and that the trip will still be fine without them. But honestly, the stress and cost of trying to go to bat for both of them only to be canceled on last minute is really getting to me. What should I do? Okay, honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would be super pissed off. Your friends literally backed out at the last second for this stupid trip that you paid for. Like, at that point, you basically threw money down the drain and it's like, wait a second, how is this fair to me? You can't get a refund and you're basically being left on the hook. So yeah, you have every right to be pissed off. I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would be livid, because if anyone's gonna take advantage of me like that, especially people that I consider a friend, then for me, all sense of trust and like respect is just thrown out the window, because the way they're treating you is completely unfair. My entitled brother throws an absolute temper tantrum after he didn't get a job interview that my sister did end up getting, claiming that she's only gonna get hired because she's a woman and that the job she was applying for is clearly sexist. And I was honestly so blown away by what he said that I decided to speak up and put him in his place. Here's what happened. To start things out, this happened a couple of years ago, but no matter what, I cannot get over how entitled my brother acted. For a bit of context, my brother and older sister both applied to one of the only jobs hiring near where we lived. The job was for a cashier position, which my sister had several years experience in customer service service, while my brother only worked 1 year at a factory in his life, and he quit that job because he didn't get a raise, claiming it was unfair when staff who worked there for 5 years got raises. But anyways, one day we were out shopping when my sister got a call from the job they both applied for, and it's here that we find out they wanted her in for an interview. When hearing that, my brother basically threw a fit. He told my sister that it's unfair that you got an interview and I didn't, when I put in an application a week before you did, and even called to check up on it. I reminded him that our sister has experience while he doesn't, but then he just repeated, well, I put in an application first. I should be first, not her. Then I told him that that's not how interviews work. They wait for the ones with experience so they don't have to do much training. He then got even more upset and claimed that the store is sexist and she's only getting hired because she's a woman, which honestly made me so irritated. He was acting like a child, and our dad was actually trying to back him up, telling my sister to put in a good word for your brother. Well, my sister told our dad that there's no way she can do that because even if she gets hired, it would be wrong to immediately convince them to hire our brother. While this conversation was going on, my brother kept going on and on about how the owner is male, so he must be sexist and only want females, since currently the only staff there are women. So in order to get in, he needed our sister to tell them to hire him too during her interview. At this point, I noticed my sister getting upset throughout everything, and at first she was so excited to get the interview and was hoping everyone would be happy for her, but instead they acted like she was wrong for getting the interview instead of our brother. I told my dad and brother that that was enough, and that she got the interview because she has several years of experience under her belt, while our brother had none, and that it had nothing to do with her gender, and that no, she was not going to mention our brother during her interview or after getting hired, because if they didn't contact him, clearly he didn't cut it and they just need to stop. After that, everyone went silent, but to this day, I'm honestly still annoyed by the way they treated my sister. Oh my gosh, talk about sexist. If there's anybody who's being sexist right now, it's your brother and your dad for defending him. Like seriously, what is going on right now? She didn't get that job just because she's a woman. She got that job because she's more qualified. Like, I don't know about you, but I would rather hire someone with 5 years of experience instead of somebody with no experience and only one job on their resume that they worked for 1 year. Like seriously, what's going on right now? This is so weird. Why would you make that kind of claim just because you didn't get what you want? That is not a good look, and especially towards a family member. So yeah, I think your brother was being a complete moron, and the way he acted honestly was completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I've decided to go no contact with my narcissistic parents and my brother who's considered the golden child, all because they have taken advantage of me for far too long. But now I'm worried that things might fall apart as I'm constantly on edge with what might happen in the future, because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have finally reached my breaking point with my family, and I'm planning to go no contact very soon. I just need to get this off my chest and see if anyone has ever been in a similar situation. I grew up in a family where my younger brother was always the golden child, while I was the scapegoat, the one expected to sacrifice everything, take on responsibilities beyond my years, and never complain. My parents have been financially dependent on me for years, and despite giving and giving, it's still never enough. My brother, who turns 18 this year, still has another year of high school left. I recently told my family that once he finishes, I can no longer support them. My spouse and I are planning for a second child via IVF, which is financially and emotionally draining, and I simply cannot keep providing for two families. I'm already exhausted raising my first child, and I refuse to set myself on fire to keep them warm any longer. Well, of course, my father exploded when I told this to him. He outright said he expects me to support them until their passing, and my brother until he finishes university. Mind you, we never had this agreement. This has just been an unspoken expectation placed on me because as the scapegoat, my needs and boundaries don't matter. My brother, on the other hand, gets to sit back and be coddled with zero expectations placed on him. Earlier this year, I became eligible for US citizenship, and I had suggested a solution. I could bring all three of them to the US while my brother was still under 21, making it easier for them to immigrate legally. If they moved, they could help with childcare and meal prep, which would have benefited everyone. But no, my father, who has been brainwashed by fake news, thinks that California is a nightmare and refuses to let my brother move. And because my father always gets the final say, my brother's future has basically been decided for him. He's not particularly bright or hardworking, and I genuinely don't see him thriving in a white-collar job. But of course, in my father's delusional world, trade school is beneath him. To add to the dysfunction, my father is in his late 70s. He has been retired since his 50s and had an almost mini stroke a a few years ago. He's physically unable to work, yet he still clings to this outdated patriarchal control, expecting me to provide for him indefinitely. My mother, who is still in her 50s, is essentially his captive, forced into the role of his caretaker and my brother's enabler rather than being able to help me with childcare as she had promised years ago. Now, what's the real kicker to all of this? If my brother doesn't move now, a sibling visa after 21 takes 15 plus years to get. I have no interest in sponsoring him by then because I have my own family to take care of. But it's not like my parents think that far ahead. They just assume I'll always be there no matter how much I protest. At this point, I'm mentally and emotionally done. The moment my brother finishes his last high school exam, I'm cutting contact. It's sad because I know my father is going to regret his decision, and my brother, being the golden child, is completely unprepared for the real world. But that is no longer my problem. Has anyone dealt with narcissistic parents who favored a golden child while using you as their personal ATM and caretaker? How did you handle going no contact? I feel guilty, but also like a huge weight is about to be lifted. What should I do? Honestly, I completely understand why you want to cut contact with these people. They literally have been taking advantage of you for years. And I thought this was something that might have happened like in your late teenage years or something like that. But I'm stunned to find out that no, you literally have a family of your own and they're still acting like you're supposed to take care of everybody. And it's like, wait a second, this is not fair at all. How are you somehow responsible for their life and all of their finances? And the fact that they don't see this as a golden opportunity to get a visa while also working towards US citizenship, like that is crazy to me, and I just can't believe they're being this stubborn. So hopefully this all goes well in some kind of way, because the way your family's treating you, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. My parents are in financial trouble again, and they're asking me for more money even though I've given them so much already. And I'm honestly so frustrated that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, we had a comfortable lifestyle growing up. We were solidly upper middle class, and I never thought I would be in this position. For reference, my dad recently went all in on a business that ended up being a scam. The scam is not his fault, but what I can't wrap my head around is why he invested all of their liquid savings into this. He is barely able to stay afloat right now, so he's asking me and my brother to help the family get by. Not only is he nearing retirement age, but he also has one more kid to raise. He remarried later in life, and I have one half-sister who is still in middle school. She has learning disabilities, so she goes to a specialized school. There is a cheaper school for her learning disabilities in another city, but my dad can't move his business, so the family would live apart if they did that. My stepmother has been a stay-at-home mom for all of their marriage, and she's now looking for a job, but it's been tough. They're also planning to sell their nice house and downsize. This will finally give them some cash, but they're still strapped until the house sells. Now, he already asked me for money a few years ago when we were in the depths of COVID and his business was suffering. I recently learned from my stepmother that while that was true in the beginning, he also kept spending money on poorly executed business ideas that failed. I gave him close to $25,000 aggregated over those years. Now, at that time, I gave without any kind of hesitation. He was my dad, an astute businessman that I looked up to all of my life, and I had no doubt that he was good for it, but I still haven't seen a cent of that money back, and also feel like I was scammed by my own father. My brother and I split $15,000 recently so that my sister could finish out the rest of her school year. At this point, I know I should assume I will never see any of that money back. Because of that, I don't feel comfortable giving away any more. My brother is trying to convince me to split tuition fees with him again for the next school year so the family can stay together instead of moving her to another school in another city. But I said no. I feel so torn, pressured, selfish, and resentful. Honestly, just so many emotions going through me. No one is pressuring me, but I'm from a culture where family is very important, and I feel a sense of obligation even though I don't want to. I want to help my family, especially my sister who is innocent in all of this. At the same time, I don't want to keep enabling my dad in his poor business decisions. My brother wasn't involved with the first request for money, so I feel like he doesn't know what I went through over the last few years. I make six figures and I have no debt, and I've been saving and investing since my first job, so I do have the means and my family knows it, which makes this even harder. But I'm not a millionaire, and I would start to feel financially insecure if I kept giving more. This has also affected me psychologically. Even though I've been financially independent from my dad ever since college, it was always nice to have a financial safety net in the background. We've never had to worry about money, and now the safety net is gone, and it has completely messed up my psyche a lot. Most people I grew up with have had their parents help them with their down payments or even their weddings, but I now know that will not be in my future. I worry about my sister's future, and I know that's a very privileged thing to say. People had to go through the Great Recession, and most people in this country will never find financial security, but it's something that I'm still personally trying to come around to. I don't know how to navigate this, and I worry how my relationship with my dad and my brother will change going forward, and with my sister once she's older. What should I do? Honestly, it seems like this is a big ask from people that you thought you could rely on. And sure, you could keep giving them money, but it's like, okay, this honestly has got to stop. Because truly, where's the breaking point with all of this? So honestly, I don't blame you for not wanting to help out with this financial issue again, because it seems like these people always have something going on, and eventually they need to stand up on their own 2 feet and figure it out themselves. My old best friend reached out to me, and I am now unsure of how to respond, especially when I consider that she stabbed me in the back at my previous job. Here's what happened. Okay, so long story short, this girl and I had been friends since we were maybe 8 or 9 years old. There was a brief time in high school where we weren't really friends, just because we had different groups, and she liked to go out to party, whereas I didn't. But then we ended up working at the same job, and we got really close again. So close to the point where I was in her wedding party. About 7 months ago, we were talking about how our jobs just made us miserable, and I was a manager of a business and she was an assistant manager. Our boss drove us up a wall. We couldn't stand being in the same room as her because she was constantly belittling us. She was critiquing our personal lives, as well as making snide comments towards us. If we were working on something near her, she would quite literally stand over our shoulder and breathe down our neck. I mean, it was very frustrating. Our boss made comments about our weight. She would do something nice and then throw it back in our face, and she'd come in sick and then we'd all get sick and would then claim that it wasn't her and then be annoyed that we couldn't work. So my old friend was telling me how after December she was gone. She couldn't stand working here anymore, and she was cutting back her hours after the busy season before leaving. She had another job lined up and everything. And you know what? I didn't blame her at all. Towards the end of it, the both of us were just playing dumb games on our computer or just straight up doing personal stuff. For me, because I went back to school, I would occasionally do schoolwork, which my boss gave me the okay for, by the way, since I was still working full time. Not to mention that it was hard to find time outside of work for all of my schoolwork. Now, I will admit, we shouldn't have been slacking off, and that was in for both of us. We would still do our job, but when it was finished and there wasn't much else to do, we would talk or just relax. Well, one day I called out of work, and my old friend was so mad about this because it was starting to get a lot busier. I had explained to her what happened and that I was throwing up from anxiety and didn't sleep at all, and I was literally going on 30 hours of no sleep, but she couldn't care less. I told her if it got so busy where our other coworkers couldn't handle it, to please let me know, but she never did. I also wasn't in the day after either due to a wedding, and I'd taken that day off months prior. Well, suddenly I get to work and my old friend is ignoring me, barely looking me in the eye, and I tried to talk to her, but she just would not budge. Then I got really sick with strep throat. I let everyone at work know, and they were pissed off. They didn't believe me, even though I had proof from the doctor and antibiotics to show that I had strep. And even though I was dying, my boss called me saying how busy it was and that she couldn't do it without me. And for the next 3 days, I went into work during the busiest time to help out. And honestly, I didn't even get a single thank you, even though I felt so crappy. My old friend at this point was straight up ignoring me or giving me one-word answers to everything. Unfortunately, the strep wasn't getting better, and I started to get a huge pain in my ribs that I had to go to like 3 different doctors for, meaning that I had to take more time off of work. Now, I realized the timing was the worst since it was our busiest time, but I explained everything to my boss and again had proof from my doctor about everything. But then my boss sits me down and tells me how if I didn't want to cut back my hours and step down, then basically she would be letting me go. According to her, I called out of work to really spend time with my boyfriend, who is my now ex, and everything I told my old friend in confidence about what I didn't like about the job, she had told my boss, which are things that only she knew about. So now my old friend basically has my job. It's several months later and she is still there, and she's now best friends with my boss and all of the coworkers that she used to complain about. And my old coworker who quit confirmed that everything my boss had told me and talked to me about was my old friend whispering in her ear. Well, this friend finally messaged me back in November, and she said the following: "Hey, I just wanted to text and see if you were okay. I know we haven't talked and I couldn't tell if you were mad at me or something, but I don't want you to think that I stabbed you in the back or took your job or anything like that. We'll probably be working together next week, or at least sometime soon since another person quit, and I just don't want it to be awkward or awful if you are actually mad at me." And then she messaged me this today. She said, "I feel like I know your answer based on the last time I reached out to you, but just in case if you ever want to talk things out or whatever, I'm obviously open to it." But you know what? I have not responded to either message. So here's my question. Is it even worth clearing the air? I feel very betrayed. Last I talked to her, she said, "I understand if you hate me," which to me is saying saying that she knew what she did was wrong. I will admit towards the end, with how unhappy I wasn't the most happy person in the world. I did my job and tried to mind my own business, and that's it. But she felt exactly the same as me, and we agreed on everything about our job. So seriously, should I even bother reaching out to this friend? Because at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I would not waste my time. There's no way on earth I would ever trust someone like this, especially after they stab me in the back like that. Because let's not forget, this best friend literally stabbed you in the back. That's exactly what she did, and she's even admitting it. So for you to go back to her would just not make any sense to me. So no, I don't think you should reach out, and honestly, I think you're better off without her in your life, because she clearly was never your friend to begin with. Am I the jerk for leaving my chronically late friend to find his own way home after he is consistently never on time to anything we plan? Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old male, and I have a friend from church who's 34 who had someone total his car last August. I have been helping him with getting around as much as I can ever since then, and never once asked for gas money or anything like that. He has a problem with time management and is always late for just about everything. But me, on the other hand, is someone who is never late. There have been many instances where, due to his poor time management, he has made me late to many functions and gatherings. I truly despise people who are always late. A few times here and there is fine, but late for everything is just unacceptable in my book. Nevertheless, I look past it because he is a friend who is in need. He also rents a car every now and again to make trips out of town. I usually take him to pick up the rental car and take him back home when he returns it. Last night, he wanted me to take him home after he returned the rental, and I agreed. He tells me to meet him at this mall near my place, which we would then convoy to the rental dealer and return the car, and it would take him home afterwards. He tells me to meet him at the mall at 10 o'clock p.m., but because the mall is close by and I know he's always late, I stay home until I get a call from him at 11 o'clock p.m., which is literally 1 hour later, telling me that he is at the mall. So I drive to the mall, I'm parked where he said to meet him, and I still don't see him. So I call his phone twice and I text him 3 times, and I still get no response. I then wait 5 minutes with no response still, and then I decide to go home. As soon as I get in my house, I get a call from him asking where I'm at and that he left his phone in the rental and he went to go buy something in the mall. I then tell him that I just went home. He doesn't argue or anything like that, and he just says thanks for coming by and trying to help him out. And you know what? I did not go back to help him. I left him to find his own way home. I've given him rides countless times before, but this time I was just fed up of him never respecting my time and then not answering my calls when I've left my home at 11 o'clock p.m. to help him out. I am not turning back on this decision. I'm standing on that, but I do feel kind of bad for just ditching him like that. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your friend is being super rude by always being late, especially being an hour late to your pickup time? Like, that is unacceptable, and I don't blame you for being annoyed. So hopefully in the future he finds a new way to get a ride or figure out his car situation, because I definitely think he's taking advantage of your kindness. My mom complains the entire time we're on vacation, making my life a living nightmare and thus proving that I will never go on vacation with her ever again. Here's what happens. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 22-year-old female and I came on vacation with my parents. And it's important to note that we've done everything my mom wants the way she wants it done. Literally everything has got to go her way or she'll throw a tantrum. And you know what? I was okay with that until today. We had a long bus ride at about 5 hours to get to the hotel that we were staying at, and by the end of it, we were all tired. But when my mom gets tired, she begins with this awful childlike behavior. First thing in the morning, she complains because we use backpacks instead of a suitcase, which, by the way, that was her idea. Then we had to take a boat to get to the island, and on the way to the boat, she was carrying a bag and started whining that it was too heavy, even though there was only a towel and a bottle of water inside of it. I offered to carry the bag for her, but still she just ignored me and kept complaining. Then she swore that a guy took her seat while we were on the waiting room for the boat, even though there's no designated seats, and complained for like an hour about how she didn't want to ride the same boat as him. We finally arrived to the island at 5 o'clock p.m. and the sun had finally gone down and we hadn't had anything to eat. We get to the hotel and sit down and finally eat something, and my mom doesn't even read the menu and just decides that she doesn't like it and instead just wants to go to a place that's like 20 minutes away. My dad and I are so tired and we convince her to stay, and thank God she accepted. But obviously she whined the entire time that we ate. The meat wasn't made the way that she likes it. The potatoes are cut too big. The juice is too sweet, etc. Then she decides that actually she doesn't like the hotel at all and looks for pictures of it on Google, and now she's angry because our room doesn't have the same type of floor as in the pictures. She wants to complain to the manager and demand a another room. Well, by then I just lost it and I told her, aren't you tired of complaining all day? We are just staying in this hotel for one night. Suck it up. Well, she didn't even answer me when I said that, and she said to my father, I do not know what's up with her. Are you seeing this? Now, my dad never says no to my mom, so he told her to do whatever she wanted. I'm honestly so tired of this. We are all tired, but that doesn't mean we can act like total idiots. So honestly, I'm never going on a long trip with them ever again. Maybe you think I'm too grown to be coming on trips with my parents, but I'm an only child, and they like spending time with me, and I like it too. Also, it's easier to split expenses when there's 3 of us, and usually I just ignore my mom's behavior, but this time it was way too much. Oh man, I would go absolutely insane if I had to deal with something like that. In my opinion, when you go on vacation, especially for a vacation that probably costs a lot of money, that means you gotta sit down and suck it up no matter what happens. Just roll with the punches even if things go wrong. Because seriously, this is so annoying. No one wants to go on vacation just to listen to your mom complain literally the entire time on the way to the hotel. So yeah, hopefully you never deal with that again because your mom sounds incredibly obnoxious. An entitled bully at work constantly terrorizes everybody around her, making everyone's lives miserable, especially one girl who she claims stole her man. And after watching this bullying take place over months at a time, things finally hit a breaking point where this entitled coworker was put in her place in a way that she will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife has an entitled coworker and acquaintance, and trust me, I use the term acquaintance as she does run in our friend circle, but we try to limit or avoid contact with her. For the sake of the story, we'll call her Carrie. Carrie is not her real name. Anyways, Carrie is known for bullying coworkers at work, saying that she can get people fired even though she can't, screaming at people, and at large, just general bad behavior. Her favorite thing to intimidate people with is to tell them to F around and find out, and this will be important later on. So Carrie had a friend with benefits, and this is nothing serious, it was just a guy that she would spend some quality time with and then kick out the door. Carrie is also notorious for collecting engagement rings. She would begin dating a guy to get a ring from them, get them to pay off some bill of hers, and then kick them to the curb. Again, I bring this up only as context for her character and to reinforce that this friends with benefit meant absolutely nothing to her, as she didn't even date him nor even try to get a ring from him. She used him and then kicked him to the curb. And this is right whenever someone with money showed her attention. She would also frequently talk garbage about this guy behind his back. So Carrie was on one of her short-term engagements to a guy that we will call Bill for the sake of the story. Now this was currently not someone she was seeing, as the new guy just bought her a $6,000 ring. And I'm serious, she really collected engagement rings like they were Pokemon, and paid $10,000 to get her roof fixed. So she was clearly happy with this guy and had no interest at all in Bill. Well, this is when a woman who we will call Mandy enters the picture. Mandy is another coworker of my wife and Carrie. I personally don't know her, but from what I've been told, she just got out of a 15-year marriage where she wasn't allowed to do anything and was very controlled. Carrie and Mandy are friends and drinking buddies. Carrie likes to drink a lot, and by that I mean that she drinks all the time. But nevertheless, they were on good terms. So randomly, Mandy meets Bill. Mandy doesn't know Bill's history with Carrie, nor knows that he even knows her. And wouldn't you know it, they hit it off like really well. In fact, they're getting along so well that they actually begin dating, and it eventually blossoms into a great relationship, one that's actually built on respect and love. But unfortunately, as soon as Carrie finds out about this, she loses her mind in a way that honestly I've never seen before in my life. Now again, just to reiterate, she never dated Bill, and she never wanted to date Bill, and she never had any interest in him besides spending quality time with him, if you know what I mean. In fact, she's currently engaged to another guy, but Mandy apparently took her man, and she let the world know all about it. And this is where things really started to unravel. Carrie started by going to their boss daily and asking him, why does that stupid idiot still work there? And she would also loudly exclaim this on the work floor for all to hear. Also, Carrie spent a whole hour yelling and screaming at her for something that Mandy didn't even do. Carrie would also frequently bother them both when they were out and about in town. She would loudly call her every single name under the sun, and it was just all the nasty things that you could say about somebody. And she would not only say these things in their proximity, but tell anyone that would listen, or even people who would not listen. So basically, anybody around her. She would yell about how she was wronged by Mandy and Bill, and what she thought about it, and that Mandy is effing around, so she's about to find out. Well, fast forward 2 months, and Mandy and Bill are still together and extremely happy. Carrie is, not surprisingly, no longer engaged to that guy, and also, not surprisingly, has already been engaged to another guy and married after a week. It was unfortunately the 2-year anniversary of the passing of a mutual friend of all parties involved, and Carrie is using this time to take the week off of work to drink. Now, this is an entirely different can of worms, where basically she isn't nearly as close to this person who passed as she claims to be. be. But anyways, once work is over, everyone else goes to the bar to have a drink to celebrate the departed life. So once again, after 2 full days of drinking, Carrie sees Mandy, and she begins to go in on her again about all this stuff that is honestly just so disgusting. Well, Mandy, having finally had enough, tries to attempt to talk to Carrie in an attempt to reconcile, but Carrie is having none of this and keeps calling her names and proceeds to tell her that Mandy is effing around and is going to find out, and actually ends up calling her one of the worst names you can possibly think of. Well, when this happened, I'm guessing something snapped, and it was here that Mandy straight up threw a beer bottle straight at her, hitting her in the face. Imagine the cop in The Big Lebowski throwing the coffee cup, because this literally knocked Carrie on her butt. There's a slight pause, and someone I don't know who pipes up finally says, well, it looks like you were the one to F around and find out. And Carrie, obviously being stunned, gets up and leaves. So the next day she showed up to work with a very obvious black eye. She isn't saying anything to Mandy, but instead she's going to everyone else complaining that she was the victim. But what she just doesn't understand is that everyone's been watching her bully this poor girl for the past few months. And hopefully this is a lesson learned where Carrie will no longer F around and find out what will happen if she pushes someone too far. Wow, this is uncalled for. Carrie sounds like a horrible person. Like seriously, she goes out of her way to mess with other guys just so she can collect engagement rings and somehow get them to pay for her bills. Not to mention that she's trying to have like, I don't know, some kind of weird connection with like a friends with benefit, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? You don't like Bill and you're not even interested in him. So the fact that she's trying to be like, wow, Mandy stole my man, she's obviously just trying to start drama for the sake of starting it. So good for Mandy for standing up for herself and literally knocking this chick on her butt, because in my opinion, Carrie's actions absolutely deserve to be punished. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled gas company refuses to find another technician to replace the one that called in sick. So I decided to get some petty revenge, reminding them of the law and thus forcing them to give me exactly what I want. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm not sure if this counts as revenge, but I definitely think it was petty. I moved to a new place and I had to get the gas hooked up. So I scheduled an appointment with a gas company technician at 10 o'clock in the morning, while also paying the deposit. At 9:30, I'm at the gym near my house when I get a phone call that the technician is sick and can't make it. I say to them, well, can't you send somebody else? And the representative on the other end said, that's impossible. We have nobody else. I said to them, but you are literally canceling 30 minutes before my appointment. The representative then gives me an attitude. They say to me, haven't you ever been sick? These things happen. We have to reschedule. I then responded by saying I had to free my schedule for this meeting. I'm not mad that the technician is sick. I'm mad that you don't have a backup. The representative then said to me, then free up another day. Today will be impossible. Well, I Googled laws in my country about customer rights, and it turns out they owe me the equivalent of $200 for bailing on the meeting. So I called the call center back. I asked if they were sure that they couldn't send me somebody, and now the pissed off lady repeated that it was impossible. So I said to her, okay, so how would you like to send me the $200? The representative then sounded confused and said, come again? I then sent her the link to the law on the government website. The representative then said, we will send someone over as scheduled. Now this is where I got really petty. I said to her, are you sure? You said that your guy was sick and would not want to get him out of bed. The representative then said, sir, the technician will arrive at the scheduled time. I then said to him, well, it's just that you said it was impossible. I wouldn't want to break the laws of physics. But the representative repeated themselves again, saying that the technician will arrive at the scheduled time. So I responded by saying, I'm just astonished at how fixable it was when a few minutes ago you said it was impossible. And while the representative said the same thing again, I responded by saying, yes, but what changed? Other than you not wanting to pay out compensations? Because it would seem to me as a layman that maybe it's possible, but you just didn't feel like doing your job until you found out it would cost you money. I kept this up for another 10 minutes, and I went home in time to get my gas connected. Now I'm moving to an entirely different building 3 buildings down to switch gas companies simply out of spite, and so far it's going really well. I love this story because that representative changed their tune immediately. Once they realized the customer knew the laws and was like, oh wait, no, you can't do this. They suddenly switched it up and realized, oh wait, I have to do my job now. And it's like, my God, if you had just done your job in the first place, none of this would have gone wrong. So yes, this gas company is so stupid, and the fact that they wouldn't just figure this out immediately, in my opinion, is so uncalled for. An entitled Karen demands that I call the police, all because I was parking my car in a handicapped spot. But despite the fact that I was legally parking there, this entitled Karen was refusing to hear me out. Here's what happened. So today, I drove my mother to an appointment. We both qualify for handicap parking, and I do have handicap plates. I walked my mother into the office where she has an appointment, appointment and there's almost no seating. So I tell her that I'll wait outside since I don't need to be in the appointment with her. It's a really nice day, so I sit on a concrete retaining wall about 15 feet from my car and read on my phone. After about 20 minutes, I notice a woman about my age has pulled up behind my car and is just looking at it. After a couple of minutes, she spots me. She comes over and demands that I let her use my phone. I asked her why, and she said her phone wasn't working and she wanted to report someone for illegally using a handicap spot. I asked her where that car was, since you could see the little wheelchair on my plate from where we were, and there was no other handicap spot in view. She then points at my car. I then asked what made it an illegal park job, and her response was to say that this is where she would always park. Well, I told her that was my car. It wasn't moving until my passenger came out, and it was legally parked. She then stomped off towards my car, so I just started recording her. Then, when she reared back to kick the car, I yelled out that she was on camera, and I had her plate number if she tried to damage my car. But then, right at that moment, she ran off, she got in her car and drove away. About 30 minutes later, a city cop came by, stopped, looked at my car, and then drove off. So I assumed she found a working phone somewhere and reported me for something that I wasn't doing wrong. Man, this is a classic case of people literally not minding their own business. Like, obviously, there's a handicap parking pass in your window, and the fact that this lady's trying to be like, well, I always park there, so if you're parking there, that must mean that this is illegal and you're not allowed to do that. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? That is so weird and annoying. So honestly, I don't blame you for recording her because that lady was clearly trying to like damage your car. And the fact that she probably called the cops anyways is just a huge waste of time for literally everybody involved. Am I the jerk for asking my friends to stop scheduling workplace events at the restaurant I work at? Because right now it's making everything awkward and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so me and my friend, who we will call Camilla, work at the same place. We have been acquaintances for a long time, but only got closer when I got hired in the start of last year. She is essentially my boss's assistant. Besides working here, I took a part-time job in a restaurant where I work Friday nights, Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. Well, my boss likes to host dinners for our whole office at least once a month, or when we finish a really big project. Usually, I can't make it, so I don't pay a lot of attention to discussions about it. But at the start of the year, I realized that the dinner for the opening of the year was going to take place at the restaurant I worked at. I talked with Camilla and she said she didn't realize, but also that it couldn't be changed since the reservations were already made. Now that dinner was awkward for me since my coworkers kept asking me to sit and eat with them and they were kind of giving me weird looks, almost as if they pitied me in some kind of way, to be completely honest. They left a huge tip, which was kind of cool, but also a bit embarrassing. Afterwards, everyone started treating me differently, and my supervisor even pulled me aside to ask if everything was alright. They had good intentions, but it was genuinely annoying for me, especially since I don't talk much about my personal life at work. The February dinner was set for the restaurant I worked at again. I asked Camilla about it, and she just said that the boss really liked the place and there was nothing that she could do. So I decided to trade with one of the workers in the restaurant that works in the back, just to try and avoid the awkwardness from before. I was not even 1 hour into my shift when the owner came in and informed me that I had to trade again because table 4, you know, the one with all of my coworkers, asked for me specifically. When I switched, Camilla made a joke about me hiding from them and everything was awkward all over again. After that, I sent a text message to Camilla asking if she would please stop scheduling the dinners here. Well, she said that she couldn't and we had a huge argument about it. I said that she was being a bad friend and she just said that I should quit one of the jobs if I was so embarrassed of people from one workplace meeting me at the other. She also called me poor, but she apologized for that. So honestly, am I the jerk here? I am obviously young, so I don't know if I'm being immature, but honestly, Camilla is upset with me, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk, but I also think Camilla's doing this on purpose. Like seriously, this kind of seems targeted in my opinion, and I think she's absolutely doing this because she doesn't like you. Like Camilla is not your friend in the slightest. If she was your friend, she wouldn't be trying to like, I don't know, make you look bad. Like now you're getting treated differently at work. You literally are having people pull you aside and be like, is everything okay? When in reality, having a second job is not that unusual. But for some reason, these idiots are trying to be like, oh wow, you're on hard times. And they wouldn't even be thinking that if Camilla wasn't like trying to actively ruin your reputation. So no, you're not the jerk for trying to set a boundary, but in my opinion, I would go above her head if you really don't want this scheduled like this ever again. I would go to my boss directly and explain my case. I would say that I feel embarrassed by people coming to my other job and that it all makes me feel really awkward, while also explaining that Camilla is almost doing this on purpose while calling you poor in the process, because this situation is absolutely avoidable and it seems like Camilla's doing all of this on purpose. Am I the jerk for telling my fiance that her sister can't stay with us going forward after she has literally caused such a scene in every aspect of our life. Because right now I feel like everything's falling apart, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, my fiance's mother and sister are devout Hindus while I'm a Christian. Their family is very dysfunctional. The parents are separated but live in the same house. The sister resents their father, constantly fights with him, and refuses to move out despite owning a house that he bought her. She stays home to avoid spending money, saving 95% of her income while their mother enables her. The real trouble started when my fiance, her mother, and sister visited the temple twice. The first time, a temple person told them that I would end up with another woman, and they believed it blindly. The second time, this same person claimed that I was gay. Afterwards, they called my mother, saying they wanted to sell everything and get their money back. Following this, I asked my fiance to limit their visits to our place. They were coming over 3 to 4 times a week, which was really excessive. I value my privacy and I want time alone with my fiance. Then came my birthday party. My fiance's mother invited their father, hoping to try and mend things over. During the dinner, he made a joke and the sister lost it. She then stormed out, went home, and destroyed his garden. He said he was going to call the cops, and honestly, I don't blame him. She has serious anger issues. The next week, their mother left for an overseas trip, leaving the sister home alone. She initially asked if she could work from our place, which I suspected was an excuse to stay over. And sure enough, when the time came, she guilt-tripped my fiance into letting her stay for a full week. Now, at that point, I put my foot down. I told my fiance that her sister couldn't stay. After what she pulled with the temple visits and her general behavior, I didn't want her in my home. I also like my space. I walk around in my boxers, I unwind, and I don't want to feel uncomfortable in my own house. My parents also agreed that she shouldn't stay with us when she has her own home. A few weeks later, my fiance finally told her sister that she couldn't stay over anymore. And when she said that, she completely lost it, texting my mom to keep her nose out of our business and telling me to keep the heck away from my dog. And for reference, they have a Jack Russell Terrier that I love. Now, she's acting like a child and refuses to attend our wedding despite being the maid of honor. She also keeps messaging my fiance, though I don't know what she's saying. My fiance now wants me to apologize, but I don't feel that I did anything wrong. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, this is crazy because these kind of problems are not going to go away anytime soon. For starters, you're not the jerk for saying, hey, you can't stay here anymore. But also, I think you probably need to realize that these problems with your fiance's family are literally going to come up all the time. It's not going to stop overnight, and it's definitely not going to be fixed just because you're getting married. Like, you're going into a family that sounds incredibly dysfunctional, and I'm not saying don't marry your fiance, like that's your decision, but you've got to weigh the pros and cons here. And in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be very hesitant to move forward. Like, this really sounds insane across the board. Like, there's really no excuse for this level of dysfunctionality, and the fact that they're acting like this constantly is just a huge red flag. So hopefully all of this gets figured out sooner than later, because this new family sounds like a nightmare to deal with. And in my opinion, I think you deserve way better than this. Am I the jerk for complaining to my fiance about the mouth noises he makes when he eats? Because right now he's saying that I am the jerk, and I honestly am not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my fiance and I have been living together for almost 2 years. In the last month or so, my fiance has adopted this habit of attempting to clean his teeth after eating by making the sucking noise constantly. It is such a disgusting noise, and I can't stand listening to it. For a bit of context, growing up, I grew up with my grandfather that ate with his mouth open and my grandmother who had issues with her throat. Because of this, for most of my life, I was subject to listen to some pretty gross noises while they ate. As an adult, I don't want to be subjected to the same experience if I don't have to. I've brought it to my fiance's attention several times, and every time he acknowledges it and says that he will try to stop, he just feels like there's something in his teeth. I have suggested floss, toothpicks, those portable toothbrushes, but nothing has worked, and he still continues to do it. Well, I don't see why I have to force myself to listen to him doing that, so after we eat, I've made it a point to get up and go sit in a different area of the house for 5 minutes. We got into an argument about it, and he's calling me a jerk because I shouldn't be getting upset about something he can't help. Like I said, I've already told him several times that I'm not going to be subjected myself to listening to him do that. If he's not going to make a more conscious effort to not do it, then I'm going to remove myself from situations where I might have to listen to him do that. I'm not even trying to make him feel bad or give him this ultimatum, but I don't understand why I need to force myself to listen to him do something that genuinely makes my skin crawl just to make him feel better. It's also important to note, it's not like he does this just after big meals. He does this multiple times a day after eating pretty much anything. What should I do? Okay, I don't think you're the jerk at all. The fact that your fiance is saying that this is something he can't help and that it's something he just does, in my opinion, proves that he's actually the jerk and that you're not. Like, seriously, this guy easily could start fixing this behavior if he really wanted to. And what you're asking for is not that big of a deal. It just sounds like your fiance's being stubborn and he doesn't want to change, and so now he's flipping this on its head towards you as if you're the one with the problem. So no, you're definitely not the jerk because the way he's acting is absolutely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for not giving my new neighbor any surveillance footage over the last 2 weeks of an incident that may or may not have happened on their property? And despite the fact that I've explained to them multiple times that my cameras do not point at their property at all, they literally are ignoring everything I'm saying and instead are demanding that I give over the footage that they want. Here's what happened. So my neighbor from a few doors down purchased the house next door to me and is actively renovating it. They have been pretty respectful and so have I. I recently gave the owner my phone number after I saw a pretty extensive water leak from their renovation flowing into my driveway to the street. Now this is not a big deal, but obviously they would want to get that turned off immediately and repaired. I'm in construction and real estate and recently had a similar leak from my house. So being neighborly, I texted them a link to the part they needed to fix the specific issue. Flash forward a month later, and this neighbor is texting me asking if I have surveillance footage of their renovation property, especially the outdoor breaker boxes. They referenced a 2-week period that a now fired contractor allegedly flipped a breaker that they weren't supposed to, which resulted in the pool pump coming on and staying on, leading to it running dry and burning out. Well, I immediately let them know that my surveillance system is not in any way aimed at their house, and I wouldn't have a view of that. They then asked again in pretty much the same words as if I hadn't already replied. Now, I did not feel so inclined to send them all sorts of camera screenshots that were none of their business, but I did send them two where her property line was just in the edge of the screen. Well, they replied with a zoom portion of one of the pictures, maybe equating to less than 1% of the entire view, circling and drawing arrows all over it, as well as sending messages that said, "This is the breaker box, please send me pictures." Now, mind you, I already said no twice at this point. I have not replied again since the last text message, but for those not understanding the request, there is no quick way to watch 2 weeks of surveillance footage of a tiny zoomed-in area waiting for any type of movement. Your eyes would have had to be on the screen the entire time. This is very different than watching for something stolen or broken, where you can easily just narrow it down. This is not a reasonable request, even from a neighbor on friendly terms, much less from a random acquaintance that I've spoken to maybe 5 times. So am I the jerk for not replying again, not saying no a third time, not explaining why, or not even being willing to watch 2 weeks of video footage just to look for a possible 60-second period of an extreme close-up? Because right now I'm honestly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, you are not the jerk. They're asking way too much. Like seriously, your cameras are not pointed at their property. It's only monitoring your property and that's all it should be looking at. So the fact that these people are trying to be like, review 2 weeks of footage please, and give it to us as soon as possible. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. That's weird. And if they really are that concerned about their property, then guess what? They can put up some kind of camera system and figure it out themselves. The fact that you're even being put on the spot like this is so obnoxious, because in my opinion, your neighbors are being super weird. And if they really want to protect that property, then they seriously need to be way more proactive. My entitled grandmother hijacks my brother's cancer diagnosis and somehow makes the entire situation all about herself, as she constantly pulls the attention away from him in a way that is truly toxic and unsupportive. Here's what happened. Okay, so recently my older brother developed a strange lump in his neck. This had been a month-long ordeal, so I'm going to start at the beginning. Upon receiving this news, my brother's first reaction was just to call my mother and father, allowing them to spread the news if they wanted to. My mom told her mom so they could send him food, clothing, money, etc. Well, my entitled grandma, who is the subject of this story, didn't become aware of this until about a week or so after the initial acknowledgement of the possibility of cancer. And this was mostly because she wasn't going to do anything but pester everybody. She then proceeded to call my brother and yell at him for not telling her first, and how he's so selfish for keeping this diagnosis from her, a nurse. Now, I find this so stupid because she's a CNA, and no insults to CNAs, I mean, you guys are wonderful. And my family is a family of nurses and doctors. I mean, even my brother is going to medical school himself. Not to mention that her being a nurse does not entitle her to know information about something going on with us. We did not want to tell extended family yet because we weren't sure if it was cancerous or something else. We didn't want to create unnecessary worry. Throughout the month, she had been calling and texting him nonstop, and when he didn't respond, she would blow up my phone and my other brother's phone. Now, I don't live with my brother, and admittedly, I don't have much contact with him, so I don't know why she called me 45 times within 2 days. I had to block the numbers so I could get through school without my phone constantly buzzing in my pocket. She finally stopped when my dad stepped in and forced her to stop. Now, at this point, we hadn't heard much from her at the time, but unfortunately, this is where things really go south, as my grandma goes crazy in a way that I honestly honestly never expected. Anyway, so we had to go to where my dad lives so he could have it removed. Insurance problems were the reason we couldn't stay in town, and it was just supposed to be my dad, my mom, and me. And I was mostly there for my mom because I didn't want her to be alone. When we let family know, she decided to call my brother up and demanded that we go to Mayo Rochester for a second opinion. But the thing is, we didn't even have the first opinion. All we knew is that the lump has been taken out. It hasn't even been biopsied yet or even sent to pathology, and she kept insulting the hospital we were going to and that Rochester was so much closer, but in fact, it's a lot farther. We were going to Bell End, and this made my dad angry because he works at the hospital and also it's Bell End. My dad then calls her and tells her to shut up. Well, finally we got some silence, and we were hoping that that would be it, but of course it wasn't. The initial trip was going to be a 3.5-day trip. We would leave Tuesday night to the hospital and leave Friday afternoon. It was just going to be the 4 of us. However, in true fashion that only my grandmother can exude, she decided to butt into the situation once more. She announces on Facebook that she'll be going to her grandbaby surgery to be there for him and that they should pray for her and not him. We were also not aware she was coming until that announcement. A day before we had to leave, we sucked things up and tried to keep things nice and stress-free for my brother. When we arrived, it was smooth at first. The first night we got dinner and discussed plans for the next day. My brother had a CT at 9:15 and then a consult for surgery at 11:30. Afterwards, we were going to wander around the city and enjoy ourselves. The first part of our plans went well. We got up, got breakfast, and then went to the CT appointment. I was originally just going to meet my stepmother there, and we were going to go shopping and get some things for post-surgery. However, my entitled grandma met us at the hospital. At the first appointment, she began to demand to take my mom's spot in the appointment room, saying she had more of a right in that room because she knew more than my mom. And we're talking about my mom, you know, the mother of my brother. My brother then put his foot down before my mom could say anything in return to her, and that shut her up for a little bit. My grandma then pouted in the corner while my brother and my parents went into the appointment with him. The appointment took about an hour or so. My stepmom and I began getting ready to go shopping for a bit, catching up and deciding where to go. My grandma then steps in and demands us to stay or to invite her along, but we just deny, saying that we wanted it to just be us because I haven't seen my stepmom in a while. And then the conversation begins to change for the worse. She began to call me a disappointment for not thinking of my grandma and how I'm such an ungrateful brat. She said she would do anything to spend another moment with her grandmother and that you never know what's gonna happen. She may pass away all of a sudden. And then she started demanding why I didn't defend her and why I blocked her. Now, I'm gonna be honest. After years of mistreatment from this hag and the burnout of high school and the fact that it was 9 in the morning, I was not in a good mood. I replied in a short tone. I said to her, if you pass away right now, I couldn't care less. And then I turned on my heels with my stepmom and I went shopping. After the CT, we decided to go out as a family for a little bit and spend some time together until the next appointment. My grandmother then takes this opportunity to take control. She begins to direct us to places that she wants to go, places she thinks my brother would like, and she keeps asking my brother to buy her things. After all, this situation is just as hard on her as it is on my brother. I keep holding my tongue, simply guiding my brother away. My stepmom and I also double team my grandma whenever she starts pestering my brother over the smallest things, like why she wasn't allowed in the appointment. We separate them quickly and end the conversation from the beginning. Finally, it comes to the second appointment and we go. Instead of shopping, I decided to spend the appointment time doing schoolwork since I was missing a few days. Not to mention that I was just so emotionally strained from trying to parent my grandmother. Well, eventually, my entitled grandmother started pestering me again. And this time she was a bit nicer, asking me about school and all this other stuff. I then began talking to her about my plans for my senior year and plans after college. She then began to try and tell me what I should do with my life, saying I should follow in my father's footsteps. I should become a respiratory therapist, or better yet, I should become a CNA like her. But I said no, and that I planned to either become a psychologist or a physical therapist, and that was final. Well, she pouts for a little bit and then starts telling me about classes I should take for my senior year, and that my senior year would be too hard for me. She says that sometimes I'm a bit slow and may not be able to handle calculus and physics at the same time, but I bit my tongue a bit and I just ignored her. But then she got angry at me for ignoring her. I honestly wish I had some witty things to say to her, but all I could muster was, well, this is why no one wants you around. And thankfully, that shut her up for just a little bit. Finally, lunchtime came around and we went out. And this was my brother's choice, of course. But my entitled grandma began to complain about the choice of restaurant and how Cancun was trashy and the food wasn't good. When we arrive, she then begins to try and tell us what to order. Now, we ignore her, of course. However, when she heard that I ordered enchiladas, she began on her wonderful tirade. She began to talk to me about how I should watch my cholesterol and my weight. And she then said, you know, a fat physical therapist is a bad physical therapist. After she said that, I stared her for a little bit before I simply moved seats, essentially leaving her alone at the end of the table. When the waiter comes over to get our orders, she then tries to change my order into a salad, saying that I don't need all of those carbs, but I'm in bulk right now and I want my carbs. My mom stepped in and simply told her to shut up. My entitled grandma was most likely going to protest, but my dad gave her the glare of doom and she finally shut up. She remained quiet and was pouting until it was time to go back to the hotels and get some sleep. My entitled grandma began to pester me again to stay with her at the hotel, but I wasn't going to. I didn't plan on it and I did not want my mom alone. So I set my foot down, saying I wasn't going anywhere with her. She then proceeded to grab my arm and tried to drag me away, saying that I was a brat and should listen to my elders. But I simply pulled my arms out and called her a complete hag that should learn when someone wants her to go away. After that, I went back to the hotel and I went to bed. The next day, we learned that she went home because apparently she knows that she's not wanted, which is honestly really doubtful. She also sent all of us a long string of text messages telling us how she was so disappointed in all of us for not respecting her and just being so mean. She apparently was so stressed out with the possibility of my brother having cancer, and she just wanted to spend this time with her family. But you know what? I just ignored her. The rest of the trip went well, and my brother's surgery went well. Luckily, it was benign, and now he has a wicked scar from surgery. And even to this day, I still have my entitled grandma blocked because she is truly one of the worst people that I've ever known. Man, imagine being so entitled that you go to someone else's cancer diagnosis and somehow make it about yourself. Like seriously, can she not read the room? Now is not the time to be selfish and be like, oh, it's all about me. How dare you not take everything I say as gospel? It's like, lady, you try to take the mom spot in the appointment room and you're trying to like dictate everything about this trip while also insulting everybody around you. Did you really think anybody would want anything to do with you after this? So truly good for you and the rest of your family for shutting this lady down because her behavior was absolutely out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My roommate has feelings for my boyfriend in a way that is truly trying to like ruin my relationship, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old college senior living with a few roommates, including someone who we will call Cherry. She's sweet but super socially awkward, and we mostly got along fine. That is, until my boyfriend entered the picture. We are long distance, so he visits every other weekend, and at first, Cherry barely acknowledged him. But then he carried her groceries one time, and then suddenly she was all in. It started off small. She would hang out with us in the living room, ask when he was visiting next, and even seem more upset than me when he couldn't come over for 3 weeks. But then it escalated. She would interrupt our dates, force her way into our plans, and constantly ask him to fix things in her room. One time, I gave him a Nintendo Switch, and she insisted that we play it in the living room instead of my bedroom. Another time, we were cooking a romantic dinner, and she plopped down at the kitchen table to do homework. Now, the worst part about all of this is that she started showing up unannounced at places we mentioned going to. Valentine's Day, for example, was a disaster. She saw me dressed up, threw a dramatic fit about being dumped, and guilt-tripped us into consoling her instead of going out. Oh, and by the way, she's been asking me super personal questions about my relationship, like she's auditioning for a role in it. But here's the real kicker. I overheard her crying on the phone the other day, confessing her love for my boyfriend. She talked about taking photos of him, daydreaming about him, and how unfair it is that ugly girls get happy endings. She even went on a concerning rant about feeling depressed and hinting that she might be having some dark thoughts, if you know what I mean. I'm stuck living with her for 3 more months, and I'm worried her behavior will escalate. How do I shut this down without making things worse? What should I do? Oh man, I absolutely cannot imagine being in that scenario. Here you are just trying to like live out your senior days of college, and now your roommate is suddenly jumping in and being like, oh, I love your boyfriend. Ugly girls get the better endings. This is so unfair. Like if I was in your shoes, I would be like, okay, my boyfriend is never coming over again, and we're gonna ride out these 3 months until I can find a new place to live. Because seriously, what is happening right now? Cherry's behavior is so uncalled for. She's clearly going through some hard times, and she's now latched onto your boyfriend because he showed any semblance of like kindness towards her. And that is definitely not fair. Like that really is something that you do not deserve to deal with. So yeah, hopefully like an information diet or even like keeping your boyfriend away from her from now on will take this idea out of her head where she's like, oh yeah, maybe I have a chance with him. Because this situation really sucks and you don't deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for taking a job that my friend was fired from? Because right now they are very pissed off at me, saying that I'm making a massive mistake. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I lost my job last month and applied for a manager position at a local coffee shop. It pays well, is super close to my house, which is essential since I don't drive, and it's a leadership role. So overall, a great opportunity for me. Well, the only issue is that my friend used to work there and was fired about a year ago. She told me not to take the job, saying it would destroy my mental health and that I would definitely get fired as well. But here's the thing. I used to work with this friend at another store where we met, and she was an awful employee. She had a bad attitude, she was rude to staff, she thought she was better than everyone, and she lacked basic skills. And this is also the third job she's been fired from. Our friendship is honestly really toxic. I've tried to distance myself multiple times, but she love bombs me, and I'm an autistic people pleaser, so somehow I'm now the maid of honor at her upcoming wedding. But that's an entirely different thread altogether. I've been at this job for a week now, and I love it. The team is great, super supportive, and the location is ridiculously convenient. I'm someone who gets along with people and does my job efficiently, so I don't usually have work conflicts unlike my friend. At this point, she's now mad at me for taking the job and keeps saying that I made a mistake. So truly, am I the jerk for ignoring her warnings and taking the job anyways? Because right now, I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Now, you didn't do anything wrong, and I don't think you're the jerk, because it just sounds like your friend is super salty because they got fired and you're somehow thriving even though it's only a weekend. Like, think about it for a second. Why would you ever take the advice of someone who got fired from a job when they themselves, like you already know, are probably not a good employee in the first place? So of course they're gonna have a bad opinion about a place they left. And by the way, they left because they got fired. And this is not the first time they got fired. Like, this is not someone who knows what they're talking about. So no, you're not the jerk for taking the job because they have literally not worked there for over a year. Like, the entire staffing situation could have changed between now and then. And in my opinion, I would say stick with a job and forget whatever your friend has to say, because clearly they have a jaded opinion about that entire establishment. Am I the jerk for not cleaning the kitchen, despite the fact that my partner agreed to help out with chores and is also working late, which is preventing him from doing his share? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So my partner and I live together in a home that I recently purchased last year. I put all of my savings into the home and pay 100% of the mortgage every month. We split bills 50-50, including groceries, and my partner is in the process of gaining permanent residency. It's a complicated family situation, but essentially his entire family is here, but he is not a citizen. He's also started within the past year of his own commercial flooring business, and he doesn't get enough jobs to sustain his income full-time with his business. So he often does random labor subcontracting work, but as a result, I make a bit more money than him. Anyways, given all of this, I decided I wouldn't charge him any rent, since the house is in my name anyways. But the one agreement that we had was that he would help me out with any household chores. We are both trying to save money, so we try to eat out as little as possible. Every night I come home from work and I cook a nice dinner, and he stacks the dishwasher and washes the pots and chopping boards that can't go into the dishwasher, and I feel like this is an even share in workload. But recently, over the past couple of weeks, he's been coming home pretty late, like around 9:00 p.m. I still cook dinner for him and I wait for him to come, but this week he's told me he's too exhausted to clean, which is fair enough. But the issue is that I don't want to have to come home from my job, spend an hour cleaning the kitchen, and then another hour cooking. I need time after work to debrief and relax. So today I called him and I told him I was just gonna get takeaway for dinner. He then got really awful towards me and made a comment about how we were supposed to be saving money, but I told him that I was tired and I couldn't clean and then cook and then clean again. He was kind of like, well, I'm working late, why can't you just do it? And I don't know, maybe I should have been more polite and just clean the kitchen when he's working late, but it kind of bugs me because he's choosing to work late. I've told him time and time again to just get a full-time job so he's not constantly stressed about finding work for his business and doing subcontracting work that runs late. But he told me he doesn't want to kiss anyone's butt and that he works well under his own direction. But in my opinion, that's life. I work under authority at my job and I deal with it in exchange for a consistent paycheck. Also, I don't think it's fair that I'm sacrificing my time so that he gets to earn more money for himself. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. I don't think you're the jerk because honestly, he really needs to step up when it comes to cleaning. I totally understand that he's working late, but at the end of the day, that really has to be something he needs to step up on. Because right now, in my opinion, I kind of think he's being selfish. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my nephew's college tuition, even though I paid for my cousin's dog's medical fees? Because right now, my brother and his wife are bad-mouthing me to the entire family, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my cousin's dog got really sick, and the cost to treat her is very, very expensive. I love dogs, and I love her dog in particular, and I love her. So I paid for it for her in full. But now my brother and his wife want me to help them pay for my nephew's college fund. I could help pay for it easily, but I refused. I don't like my nephew. I don't like his mom, and I'm indifferent towards my brother. We don't have the closest relationship, but at least we are cordial. Plus, it's not like they can't afford it. They go on multiple overseas trips a year, but if they pay for it themselves, they won't be able to afford other things, like their shopping sprees of brand name bags. They'll have to downgrade their life a little, and they're not happy about it. But to me, it's just a normal part of life. Like, people save all the time for college, even if it means they can't afford to go to Disney this year. They think it's unfair because my cousin could have afforded her dog's treatment all on her own easily. She is in a better financial state than them, but apparently they can't afford their son's college fees easily. They are now bad-mouthing me to everyone, claiming that I'm favoring a dog over my nephew, which is, and I'm not gonna lie, sort of true. They think I'm out of touch because I don't think it's a big deal for them to not go on multiple luxury vacations a year just to afford their son's tuition. They think that because it's my brother and blood family, I need to help them out, especially since they think it's easy for me to do. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to help pay for my nephew's college, even though I totally could? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. This honestly is so weird. Your brother and his wife are clearly spending their money wrong, and they saw that you spent money on your cousin, so they're like, oh yeah, you can pay for our son's college. And it's like, hold on, wait a second, why did you get sucked into all of this? Just because you paid for medical fees for a dog doesn't suddenly mean that you're open to paying for everybody else's problems in the family. I mean, never mind the fact that your brother and his wife are like financially irresponsible. They're doing all these trips and buying all these things, and yet they're trying to be like, oh, can you pay for the college? And it's like, no, are you kidding me right now? Why would I pay for something that you guys can obviously do yourself, but instead you're choosing to spend all that money on stuff that you don't need? Like, this legitimately sounds like a them problem and not a you problem. And you know what? If they want to badmouth you, then you can turn that right back on them and be like, okay, well, why don't you pay for stuff for your son? Why are you, a relative, somehow responsible for this kid's education? Shouldn't that fall on the mom and dad? Like, are you kidding me right now? So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario, and the fact that they're trying to guilt trip you is incredibly weird. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would not put up with that for a single second. Am I the jerk for being frustrated that my sister-in-law is overstaying her welcome and my husband won't enforce any kind of boundary? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Okay, so my 18-year-old sister-in-law is on spring break and staying with me and my husband. We share an apartment with my brother-in-law, but my husband, my brother-in-law, and myself all split the rent equally. It's not owned by my brother-in-law. Before my brother-in-law left for work, my husband asked if his sister could stay, and I suggested a compromise. She would stay half the week and then we would take her home. And you know what? He agreed to do this. When the time came, my husband told her and she just laughed it off. Later, when I wasn't around, she convinced him to let her stay. Now, what was his excuse, you might be wondering? He said to me that his brother said that she could stay the whole week. But here's the thing, my brother-in-law isn't even here. We are the ones dealing with it. She takes up space, invites herself on our date nights, and I can't even fully relax in my own home. Now, this isn't new. 2 months before college, she basically moved in without me knowing until days before. And you know what? I was extremely accommodating. I included her in everything and even planned her birthday. When she finally moved to her dorm, my husband and I agreed that we wouldn't pick her up for the first week to get some alone time. She then called crying with her mom, and they convinced him to pick her up. My husband excused it by saying, oh, she's just homesick. But my issue is that she'll never actually fit into college life if she keeps running back here. When I was in college, I stayed in my dorm, hung out with my friends, and partied, and she's not even trying to adjust. Later, I had a direct conversation with her, making it clear my issue wasn't her visiting, just that I needed alone time. She promised I could always tell her when I did not want her over, but weeks later, when I told her no for a weekend, my husband backed me up and told her no. She then got my brother-in-law to pick her up instead. When she arrived, she said hello to everyone except for me and ignored me until I said hello first. Then she stood right next to me and started speaking in Spanish about something directly related to me. Now, with this situation, my husband admitted that he didn't want to push back because my brother-in-law can be difficult sometimes. He said that if we sent my sister-in-law home, my brother-in-law would make a big deal about how he can have whoever he wants in his room since he pays rent. And if we tried to enforce limits, my brother-in-law would reiterate by saying he'll only pay rent for the time he's actually here. I told my husband I won't be around them the rest of the week because I'm too irritated. I don't want to be rude, but I feel disrespected and very frustrated. So, am I the jerk for wanting my sister-in-law to leave after the agreed upon time and stepping back since my husband won't set boundaries? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, not only are you not the jerk, but also I would highly consider moving out. It's obvious that your husband husband is not going to be on your side, and if anything, he's always going to appeal to his brother, his sister, and his mom. And that really is not fair for you because you have to deal with all of this garbage and it's all at your expense. So yeah, in my opinion, I think moving out might be the best option because I know if I was in your shoes, that's the first thing I would even think of doing before ever approaching anyone ever again. I found out that my husband has been having an affair with my mother behind my back because after I caught them on the desk at her house, spending some quality time together, if you know what I mean, I'm now completely devastated as they're now telling me that they've loved each other for over a year and that they think that I should get used to the idea sooner than later because right now my heart is broken and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female and I've been married to my 33-year-old husband for a year and 3 months now. We got together when I was 18 years old and he was 30 while I was a senior in high school. To a lot of people, our relationship is taboo. However, I've always been very mature for my age and it's always felt normal to the both of us. My mother, who's 40 years old, has always had a soft spot for him, which I appreciated. When she first met him, she told me that I was lucky to have an amazing person in my life. Throughout our relationship, my mom and him got along fine, which I've always thought may just be from their somewhat closeness in age. However, during our wedding is when I started noticing weird behavior from my mom. On my wedding day, she told me she wished she was the one in the gown today, referring to me in my wedding dress. I asked her what she meant, and she just started laughing, saying, "Oh, I've had too much to drink." She also suggested that her and my husband have a dance together during my wedding. Well, I immediately laughed because I thought it was a joke. However, now, considering the circumstances, it was clearly not a joke. Further down the line, she would start asking me how he was when we were spending more quality time together, if you know what I mean. Well, I told her that I wasn't comfortable talking to her about that, and that's when she said that my aunt was curious. She also started asking my husband sketchy questions like that of all kinds, and these were genuinely uncomfortable questions that made me grossed out. My suspicions specifically grew throughout the last 3 months. My husband told me that my mom had asked him to renovate her kitchen, as he does work in construction, and stated that he would be over there after work Monday through Wednesday. Well, when I offered to join him, he said that it wasn't necessary and that it would be boring for me. When I asked my mom if I should join as well, she said I was being a nagging wife asking to come over. However, when he started to visit my mom, I noticed some really big changes in our relationship because when he would come home from work or from my mom's house, he would never be interested in being close to me. My suspicions grew further when I visited my mom's place and the kitchen looked the same as before. And when I confronted both of them, they said they were still prepping for the renovation. But in this moment, I knew something was wrong as the worst was only yet to be discovered. Well, I had an urge to know, so I left work early and decided to go to my mom's place and see what was happening. When I arrived, I wanted to see what they were up to naturally and didn't want them to be alarmed that I was there. Luckily, my mom's place has a lot of windows and you can see nearly every room in the house if you just wander around. When I got to the study's window, that's when I saw my husband and my mother sleeping together, if you know what I mean, right on the desk. I screamed and cried. When they saw me, my mom looked down in complete disbelief, while my husband ran out of the room. I wasn't there long, but ran to my car and drove off hyperventilating. When I got home, I just started to pack some of my clothing and essentials and I wanted to leave. When I drove off, my phone started blowing up from my husband, my mother, and my aunt, as I'm assuming that she knew as well. I drove to an empty car park and I sat there for over 4 hours just crying and listening to music. I decided to return to my husband and I's home as the tears I let go turned into complete anger and distrust. I wanted to confront him. When I arrived home, he was not there, and there was also no sign that he had ever been at our place. I decided that I needed some sleep and thought that maybe he had just stayed in a motel for the night to give me space. When I woke up the next day, I was going to call him. However, I thought to myself that I wasn't ready to speak to him. So I called my aunt, and she told me that he had stayed over at my mother's house to be there for her. Well, when I heard that, my mouth dropped, and I couldn't even say a single word. So much so that my aunt had to keep asking if I was there. I told her if she could set up a meeting with myself, my husband, and my mother, and she said she'll pick me up and take me to my mom's house to talk. When my aunt picked me up, she said that my mother told her about the affair, and she told her to stop. Well, my mother lied to her, saying that she had, and yesterday, straight after I caught them, she said my mother told her that she had been still seeing him, and that I had found out. I told my aunt I was disappointed she didn't tell me, and that she's lost my trust, and she seemed to understand that and complied. When we got to their house, my husband had his arm around my mother, while she had her head rested on his shoulder. Keep in mind, I caught them a day ago. My mother started crying as soon as she saw me and started hugging my husband, and that in itself aggravated me. To keep this from not going any longer, they told me that they wanted to be together, and they hope one day I'll accept them. I literally couldn't even feel anything, so I just started laughing in shock. Even my aunt told my mom that she was being ridiculous. They claimed that they've been in love for a year now, and they started started sleeping with each other 4 months after my husband and I got married. The craziest claim was that my mother said she sees herself starting a family with him. After they told me everything, I sat in silence for a few minutes, and my mom pleaded that I say something, but I simply couldn't. I then asked my aunt in that moment to take me home, and she got her keys and got me out of there immediately. As soon as I got in the car, she hugged me and I started bawling. She said everything was going to be okay and that she was there for me no matter what. She offered that I stay with her, but I just wanted to be alone. It's been a week since all of that happened, and I've been at home alone just crying and drinking. I even had some really dark thoughts that honestly terrified me, to the point that I was going to check myself to the hospital. The worst part is that a part of me wishes I never saw them and lived completely oblivious to their affair. I don't have any friends or anyone in my life. The only person I had was my husband, and now that's gone. My mother and I have always had problems in the past, as she blamed my father taking his life on me, and even faked a note from him saying that it was my fault when I was 12. In a way, I think this is her way at getting back at me for my dad, as she truly believes that I was the reason he decided to pass away, all because I was an angry teenager. My husband sees my mother as forbidden fruit, which is something that I believe men crave, which is why majority of the time they're the ones that cheat. I am now alone, and to be honest, I have no clear direction for what's next for me. My husband and I agreed I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, which is something I wanted as well. I don't have any interest in college and have never considered what kind of profession would interest me, and I've always wanted to be a mom and a loving wife, and expected that to become my reality. I'm also not smart at all, and have no idea what to do from here. What should I do? Okay, first of all, I am so sorry this happened to you because you do not deserve this. Like, your mom is absolutely out of her mind if she thinks this is okay. She literally ruined your life and has already been trying to ruin your life from the beginning, it sounds like. First and foremost, you need to understand that your husband's a creep for trying to date you when you're 18, because honestly, you are incredibly young. You're not mature for your age, and that is a massive age gap. Like, this is not the 1800s. That kind of gap is not okay. And I really don't care who you are. Like, you should not be dating that young. So on that end, it kind of seemed like this relationship was gonna fail from the beginning. But also, you're still incredibly young. Like, you're only 21 years old, so you have a lot of life in front of you. Just because your husband and your mom showed their true colors, and they now have completely betrayed your trust, doesn't mean your life is over and you can't do anything else. Like, there's still so much you can do with your life. Like, honestly, this is only the beginning. But I know if I was in your shoes, I would take this as a blessing in disguise. Because for me, if I found out that my spouse was cheating on me with my mother, I would be like, oh, you're not only gone out of my life, but I'm gonna cut all of you off and move on, and live a better life than you could have ever imagined, which is exactly what you still can do. This whole scenario is so sketchy. Honestly, you got married way too young, and you got stuck with someone who clearly did not have your best intentions in mind. So hopefully you're able to get out of this situation, because honestly, this does not sound healthy in the slightest. Because what they've done to you, in my opinion, is completely tragic. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My partner expects me to lay in bed for hours because he doesn't like waking up alone. And despite the fact that I wake up early and he sleeps in till late in the morning, I'm honestly incredibly frustrated because I don't want to do this. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my partner expects me to lay in bed for hours because he doesn't like waking up alone. Currently, we're both not working, so we have mornings and days together. And since I've been on leave, he started saying he doesn't like waking up alone and wondering where I am when he wakes up. Our apartment is pretty small, so I could really only be in the kitchen, the living room, or the bathroom, honestly. It's not like I just leave and I'm unreachable for the day or something like that. I am an early riser naturally, and he is not, and is notoriously hard to wake up. I don't think it's my responsibility to rub his back so he can wake up nicely, but he doesn't think it's too much to ask. He is also adamant about me being there when he wakes up. Calling me back into bed is not good enough because the bad feelings of waking up alone has already happened. So in his mind, it's too late then. I have told him several times that this expectation is unrealistic. And if I wake up at 6:30 and he sleeps till 11:30, that is 4 hours of my day completely wasted. Also, I want coffee, I want breakfast, and it's like, are you kidding me? Is this not normal? This morning, I woke up at 7:30, laid in bed until 8:15, then got up to feed the cat and dog and started cleaning up around the house for a bit. At 9:30, he starts making noise, and I go in and lay with him, and he is once again upset that he woke up alone. Then he asked me what my plan for the day was, and I said, well, clean the house and go get some groceries to cook something. He then got upset at this and said I just plan every day, and he can't make any plans because I'm selfish, and I don't wait for him so we can plan together. I told him that my plan was just tasks, and he can add whatever he wants us to do. I tried to get him to tell me what an ideal day in his mind was, this and what a perfect girlfriend would do, but he refused to give me any examples and then just kept saying that I don't care about him. Basically, it led to a big argument, and I told him that we were just not compatible and I will never meet his expectations. So seriously, am I overreacting or is this insanely unreasonable? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Oh yeah, this is completely unreasonable. This is so weird. Your partner needs to grow up and realize that, hey, you can live your own life and do stuff without him. Obviously, the thought of him being like, oh yeah, I want to wake up next to my girl, like this is really something that I enjoy, like that in and of itself is kind of sweet and obviously like very wholesome. But he's taking it to such an extreme that he's like, no, you need to stay in bed while I sleep in. And honestly, I'm right there with you. There's no reason you should have to do that. Like that's some like obnoxiously controlling behavior, and I just would hate that if I was in your shoes. So no, you're definitely not overreacting. Your boyfriend's being weird, and honestly, I don't blame you for getting frustrated because what he's asking is completely out of line. Am I the jerk for deserting my girlfriend on a trip that I gifted to her after she went out of her way to constantly complain the entire time? Because right now I am still upset and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my long distance girlfriend happened to be here while a band she loves played 4 hours away. So I surprised her with a trip to see them. I got train tickets and a hotel, ensuring that we stayed in the best part of town and it was easy to get around. And I also told her a month ahead of time so that we could have time to plan. I told her our schedule for the arrival day and the day of the show, what times and places that things were happening. The night before, she brings up the plan and I repeat all of it to her, but immediately she starts challenging it. She says to me, "That's not a plan. What trains are we taking?" Now, I knew we had many options and I would just check Google on arrival, but nevertheless, she proceeds to look up all of the things that I had already researched and then proceeded to question my times because wrong sources say something else, as well as ruining the surprise that there is a second band. We had 4 hours from arrival to the venue opening. My plan was to drop off things at the hotel, go to the venue area, eat some food, and see a show. Well, she says that she will need an hour to prepare at the hotel, and I accept that. She says she will be wearing a revealing outfit and doesn't want to be wearing it everywhere. When we arrive in the city, I step aside to look at Google, but she doesn't even let me look before she starts giving instructions on where to go. She's in a busy crowd talking in a low voice, so I can't make out what she's saying. I tell her to speak up, and she says some track numbers. I then go to where there's a sign with numbers, but it's wrong. And then she blames me for misunderstanding. We find a train and get to our station, and she's still giving instructions that I can't hear. I then see an exit with a street name that I know is close to the hotel, and I decide to take it. She annoyedly says, "Why did you take this? It wasn't the right one." And I'm like, how is it wrong? It's the right street. We'd be walking the same distance underground. She continues pointing out how other exits were more right as we walk past them. We get to the hotel room and sit down to cool off, and I then take my pants off, expecting her to start preparing soon, but also let her have a moment to chill. After 45 minutes, she has shown absolutely no initiative. I ask if she's starting soon, but she says no. She wants to go get food. I ask why she didn't say this instead of just sitting here, but she then blames me for taking off my pants, as if I couldn't simply put them back on again. I then say that I thought we agreed to eat by the venue, but according to her, not wanting to wear the outfit everywhere implied that we wouldn't. So wearing the outfit on the way to the venue is fine, but making me stop on the way isn't. I mean, what's going on right now? At this point, I had just had enough. I had put together this sweet gift for her. I'd made sure we had time to make a plan, and I've been flexible to accommodate her, and all I hear is complaining. So I got my ticket, I gave her the key, and I said that she can do things her way, and then I left. I then walked around for a bit. I knew I was being dramatic, and I just didn't want this situation. She then calls me up, but I didn't pick up. Then, after receiving some awful text messages from her, I went to the venue by myself, and I didn't look back. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because I honestly don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. It sounds like your girlfriend is being obnoxious. Seriously, if my significant other was like, hey, I planned out this really cool thing with your favorite band, and did it in such a way where I literally don't have to worry about anything, I wouldn't then go around and be like, oh, you did this wrong. This is not the street we're supposed to take. What are you doing? Or even begin to blame them for stuff going wrong that I agreed to do in the first place. Like, talk about being so ungrateful for what she was given. So yeah, your girlfriend's being super unreasonable, and honestly, I can see this all falling apart very badly. Because what you did for her was very kind, and you did not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. I'm considering breaking up with my boyfriend after he lost his job and has shown left and right that he is not responsible in any relationship. But right now, he's saying that I'm being selfish and that I should support him through his hard times, leaving me wondering if I'm making the right decision or not. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been together for 4 months. He's 28 years old and I'm 26. Over the past couple of months, he shared that he has ADHD and that he is now medicated. He is extremely smart, but can come off as arrogant and outspoken. He has had problems problems with authority, following directions, and generally has a rebellious nature. As an adult, he has accumulated a warrant from a criminal misdemeanor charge, a suspended license, and a major debt. Initially, I looked past these things. I was apprehensive, but realized that I've had my own challenges in the last few years that I'm also working on, and he's not a bad person for making mistakes. I mean, I'm not perfect and would also want compassion. I've shared multiple times that I am wary of the future with him, but I am willing to see where things go. We've had discussions about his plan to save money and tackle each of these issues within the next year or so. In the meantime, we've gotten along great. We fell in love and he's my best friend. We have an amazing connection and he makes me feel so loved and happy. However, 2 months ago, he lost his job. Now his whole plan is out the window because whatever he had saved before is gone and he is now in survival mode. And this obviously prolongs the timeline of him getting back on his feet. I then found out that he has lost almost every job he's ever had because of his smart mouth and simply not respecting his boss. The last couple of months have been a real test for me to look past these things when considering the lifestyle that I want for myself and whether he aligns with it or draws me farther away. He is currently an unreliable and undisciplined person going through a difficult time mostly due to bad decisions. I've basically decided that I don't see a future with him based on his current situation and have mentioned that he should focus on getting back on his feet first and tackling some of his issues before considering dating me or anyone right now. Is it shallow of me to want a man who has some stability? I mean, I need to be able to trust that my partner can solve and handle his own messes. I am a very avoidant person and I like to play things safe, and he feels like such a risk. I am nervous about the future and I don't want to get stuck with someone who isn't responsible. What would be the point of dating someone if I feel that we aren't in agreement on core values and beliefs regarding finances or even socially acceptable behaviors? His stance is that I am superficial for not loving him for who he is or even wanting to support him through this hard time. He believes that I'm overthinking the future and should enjoy our time together now, making my decision if something arises. While this is a good point, in my opinion, why would I wait until I'm in a bad place to cut him out of my life if I can avoid it right now? What should I do? Okay, I've got to be completely honest here because I don't think your boyfriend is a winner at all. And I don't say that lightly because seriously, let's look at the evidence here. This guy is a literal criminal. He's got a warrant out for his arrest and for having some debts. Like seriously, this guy's proving that he doesn't have any capabilities of being a good partner. He's even got a suspended license for crying out loud. Like this guy does not sound like a good person at all. So in that regard, you have every right to step away and be like, listen, this is not working and I think you need to get your life figured out before you start dating anybody. And I honestly can't stand the fact that you're like, oh, he's such a good person, he deserves a second chance. And yeah, he does deserve a second chance, but he's got to get his crap figured out first. That second chance does not mean that you have to be the one to do it. Like that overarching idea absolutely counts and I completely agree with you, but you should not have to sacrifice your happiness or stability to make that happen. That literally has to come from him in my opinion, and I really believe that. So honestly, I don't blame you if you do want to break up with your boyfriend, because in my opinion, he does not sound like a good one in the first place. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that if he wants a cleaner home, we can either do it together at the end of the day, or he can do it himself? Because right now he's implying that I should take all of it on, and at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband regularly expresses that he wants a cleaner, more organized home, but refuses to come up with any plan where we work together to make that happen. He just wants me to magically fit more cleaning into my day. For context, he works from home and works a very flexible position where he can take breaks mostly at his leisure. He isn't on the phone or in constant meetings. He can fit in workouts, walk with a dog, shower sometimes multiple times a day, and he cooks dinner every night, which I'm incredibly grateful for. Now, I work part-time nights and weekends. My commute is about 45 minutes long, and my shifts in the weekends last 10 hours. During the week, I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning preparing for the children's days. They do hybrid schooling, where they do in-person learning Tuesday through Thursday in the morning, all the way up until lunchtime, and then are homeschooled the rest of the time. Mondays, I attend a homeschool co-op that lasts most of the day. On the in-person days, I am driving them around all morning as they go to 2 different places, and spent the few hours they are gone running errands, taking care of the animals, taking a shower, doing chores, etc. Fridays is their extracurricular day where they do horseback riding and skating, so I'm gone all day doing that. Now, I do plenty of cleaning and chores, but I am doing them with the kids. They help me with everything, but in turn, it takes twice as long because they're only 4 and 6 years old, and they're still learning to help with everything. He thinks that because he can get more done on the weekends than I do during the week, that I'm somehow not doing enough. But he also stays home most weekends, lets the kids watch hours and hours of TV and doesn't have them help. So the way we go about the day is very different. I've told him I'm already going from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night without ever taking a rest. I'm going crazy doing as much as I can. I have a planner where every page is full, showing all the things that I've done, be it with homeschooling or chores, and I can't fit anything else in. I have said if he wants more done, we can either work together as a team at night to do it, or he can replace one of the leisure activities that he does during his workday with more cleaning when everyone else isn't home. Well, he says that I'm the jerk for not being able to rearrange my day just to better fit in chores, and that he works full-time and makes dinner, and at the end of the night wants to relax, and that cleaning doesn't need to be a group project. I feel like I also want to relax at the end of the day and already start my night much later than he does. But even then, I would be willing to do it as a team. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, the fact that this guy is not willing to help out and clean at all, in my opinion, is so unacceptable. This has to be a team effort because yes, you're both very busy, but it really sounds like you're the only one cleaning the house and he's sitting there trying to be like, oh, you need to do more. And that is so unacceptable in my opinion. Like that really is super annoying. So no, you're not the jerk here because in my opinion, the way he's acting is incredibly selfish. An entitled customer loses his mind after we inform him that he can't return an item that's 12 years old because now he's demanding to talk to a supervisor, and I'm honestly so annoyed by this entire scenario. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a call center for a certain members-only bulk store chain, specifically in the online branch. One of the perks we offer our customers is an almost comically lenient return policy. We started limiting certain electronics to 90 days from the date of delivery back in 2016, and this will be important later on. And our return teams needs to look over and approve any returns for orders over 2 years old, but by and large will accept just about anything. Now, I like this policy. It's a lot easier for me to just process a return than it is to argue with the customer for 20 minutes about how no sir, it is not our fault that you didn't think to open the box until well after 90 days, and now the computer doesn't work. I can get you over to warranty, but beyond that, my hands are tied. The customers like this policy because it means they basically can return stuff whenever they want within reason. Returns usually approves the 2+ year requests unless it's something egregiously dumb, and the key word there is within reason. Now, it's early into my shift, and I don't think I'd ever had my first break at this point. Phones are dead at this time of day, as is typical once the holiday order rush and the post-holiday return rush subsides. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out what in the world 71 down on my crossword puzzle is when a call finally comes through. I snap to attention, give my spiel, and I ask the guy what he needs. He then says to me, "Nobody came to pick up the stove I'm returning. They delivered the new one and took the gas range, but I still have an electric one to return." I then said, "Well, I'm sorry to hear that, sir, but I'd be happy to see what's going on." I then checked the logistics scheduler, and the only return this guy has is for the one that got picked up. I ask him if he has the order number for the item being returned, and of course he doesn't. I pull up his order history and I ask him when he ordered the item. And for a bit of context, the order history that we see on our end only goes back to about 2017, but it's then that this guy says that he thinks he bought it in August of 2013. So it's then that I realize that it's going to be one of those calls because this honestly is about to get really messy. I'm honestly not looking forward to having to fart around in the DOS system to try and find this guy's order number, but at this point I'm thinking he just had an old phone number on the order, and that's why his pickup isn't in our scheduler with the rest of his orders. After about 20 minutes of checking every single membership number on file in our DOS system, as the guy claimed he had never changed his membership number at any point, which by the way he was wrong, as well as his multiple assertions that the last people just pulled it right up, I finally find the order. Well, lo and behold, the return is canceled because our returns team didn't think refunding a 12-year-old stove because it stopped working is in the spirit of our return policy, since it's highly unlikely the issue is caused by a manufacturing defect at this point. Now, I could go on about planned obsolescence and how things used to be built to last, but unfortunately 12 years is honestly a pretty hefty shelf life, especially for a home appliance these days, and it's definitely well out of any warranty that we have. I explain this to the customer as gingerly as I can, and he demands to know why we didn't just tell him this years ago. He goes on to scream, "I'm grandfathered into your 90-day policy, aren't I? When did that change? Why didn't you tell me years ago that you were not going to accept my return anymore? I need to escalate this right now." I try to explain to him that these sorts of situations are handled on a case-by-case basis, and it's less that there's a hard limit now, and more that a 12-year-old appliance starting to have issues can't really be considered a manufacturing defect that we're somehow obligated to refund you for. Well, even though I explained it, he is still not having it and asking for a supervisor. So I just say, "Okay, you got it, it, sir. I kick him over to my supervisor and I move on, but not before he gives me this final gem. He says to me, "If I had known you wouldn't accept my return now, I would have returned this years ago." So basically, he just admitted he wanted us to pay him to haul away his junk rather than actually thinking his stove reaching the end of its lifespan was a manufacturer defect. It's like, dear God, I'm so glad this job pays well because customers like this are truly ridiculous. Oh my gosh, this is so annoying. Dude, your stove is 12 years old. He can't possibly think he's still going to get a return for it after what, 12 years? That is seriously some entitled behavior from a customer I have not heard of in a long time. But either way, good for you for the way you handled this, because this guy was completely out of his mind. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for uninviting someone from my wedding after she just spent $2,000 on my bachelorette party? Because right now, some of my friends are saying I was being a little bit too harsh. But at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I had my bachelorette party last month, and this was an international trip with 13 girls. Now, most of them live in City 1, where I grew up but no longer reside. I now live in City 2, which is a short flight or about a 6-hour drive away. One of the girls, who we will call Rachel, was a high school friend I reconnected with 2 years ago after getting engaged. She recently started dating someone new in City 2, which is my city, and she spent the entire trip FaceTiming him at events, the club, the beach, the yacht, while getting ready, even in the shower. Worst of all, she dragged other girls into her calls, even though they barely know her, let alone him. She also FaceTimed while people were changing or while she herself was getting ready and not wearing a lot of clothes. At one point, she got into an argument with her boyfriend and handed the phone to her roommate, who we will call Jamie. And Jamie, by the way, had never met him and was essentially forced into this fight. Well, Jamie, being fed up, hung up and later asked to switch rooms. When she wasn't FaceTiming, she was talking about him nonstop. At dinner, she kept blurting out, "I'm moving to city number 2 and we're gonna be neighbors." But when I asked about her kids, she vaguely said she'd fly or drive home every weekend. Now, this is a mom of 2 with 2 different dads moving for a boyfriend of 1 month. One night during a private chef dinner, the power went out and Rachel's phone died, and everybody withheld their portable chargers. She then booked a hotel on someone else's phone, packed her bags, and left to charge her phone. And another woman, who we will call Mandy, was being way too nice and walked with her. On the way, Rachel suddenly desperately needed to call her kids, which was hilarious since she hadn't mentioned them once. Unfortunately, when the power came back, so did Rachel. Later, while we were playing Bachelorette games, she blurted out some awful slurs during Mad Libs. And when that happened, I snapped and the room went silent. We had a shared photo album for group pictures, and Rachel uploaded hundreds of selfies, thirst traps, and FaceTime screenshots, texts about how her boyfriend was the one, and even mirror selfies from a store where she was trying on clothing without underwear on. One dress even had a cut in it, and trust me, it was showing way more than it should have. My fiance was getting updates from some of the girls, and he even asked Jamie to talk to Rachel, and he himself sent her a message about being more self-aware and to please stop FaceTiming this guy. But still, nothing changed. After the trip, I sent Rachel a message thanking her for coming, but also making it very clear that her behavior was completely unacceptable. And I also told her that she was no longer invited to my wedding. Well, she read it and she never responded. Some friends think that I was harsh since she spent time and money to celebrate me. But just to be clear, I'm not cutting her off because I didn't feel like the center of attention. This is about how deeply uncomfortable she made everybody. Since I got back, I've heard even more crazy stories that the girls kept from me because they saw how upset I was. So seriously, am I the jerk for uninviting her? Because right now I honestly don't know what to do. I don't think you did anything wrong by excluding her from your wedding. Like seriously, this lady sounds super obnoxious. She basically ruined your bachelorette party, and she really was gonna be like a problem pretty much no matter what. Because the way she went about doing this was so obnoxious. I can understand doing this at like the end of the day or maybe like checking in every once in a while, but literally it sounds like every single moment was spent around like FaceTiming this guy. And the part about her doing it while people were changing or when she was completely undressed, like that in my opinion is just really invasive, and that is not okay. So no, I don't blame you for not inviting her to your wedding because that probably would have happened there as well. And that sounds like some unnecessary drama that I would never want to deal with. Today I was incredibly insulted after my hospital roommate called me ugly. And even though she said it in Russian, which I can understand, she assumed that I wouldn't know exactly what she was saying about me. So I decided to expose her and embarrass her in a way that I'm sure she will never forget. Here's what happened. When I was a sophomore in college, my appendix ruptured, and I spent a couple of weeks in the hospital off and on dealing with various infections and surgery. During my first hospital stay, I shared a room with an older Russian woman who had just just had a gastric bypass. I never said a word to her, and I just kind of kept to myself watching TV and chatting with my mom when she came to visit. I felt kind of bad that I had to walk my IV pole past her to use the bathroom because I didn't want to disturb her. So I tried to be as quiet as possible and limit the number of trips that I made. This lady had the habit of talking really loudly on the phone to her daughter, and since she heard me speaking English to my mom, I guess she assumed that I couldn't understand her. Well, I had just started learning Russian as a freshman, so I didn't understand everything that she was saying, but I could gather bits and pieces. One night, she's on the phone with her daughter, and she says something to the tune of, "I don't have the room to myself anymore. I'm sharing it with this girl, and she's really ugly." Now, obviously, I didn't look great because I had a ruptured appendix, and I was just trying to stay alive at that point, and I didn't really care what she thought of me. It just bothered me that she thought it was okay to talk trash about me to her daughter in front of me just because she thought I couldn't understand her. Plus, on top of that, I was bored, and I wanted the satisfaction of making her eat her words. So the next time I was wheeling my IV pole past her to use the bathroom, I put on my sweetest smile and said in my best Russian accent, "Excuse me." Well, after that, she didn't really say anything to me, but she also never called her daughter again while I was there because she knew I could understand every single word coming out of her stupid mouth. Wow, that really is such a toxic thing to do, especially when you consider the fact that we live in a day and age where people learn multiple languages all the time. There are so many programs out there that can help you learn another language that nowadays it just doesn't seem like a good idea to talk trash about someone in a language that you think they can't speak. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but it really seems like that would be a bad idea regardless of the circumstance. So good for you for calling that lady out, because honestly, nobody deserves to be treated that way, regardless of if you think they can understand you or not. My coworker gets mistreated by customers in a way that's honestly completely unreasonable and totally out of nowhere, leaving me and my coworkers incredibly confused. Here's what happened. So I currently work as a self-checkout cashier in a chain store. One night, I was helping a middle-aged couple when they were having difficulty using the produce menu. Their interactions with me were pleasant, but a remark they made about one of my fellow cashiers, let's call her Shelly for the sake of the story, completely caught me off guard. They said that she was mean and bizarrely that she should be working in a prison, and those were the words they used verbatim. For reference, Shelly is a relatively new coworker, but in the time that I've worked with her, I've known her to be one of the most pleasant and easygoing people in my department. So to say I was flabbergasted to hear that was an understatement. I just gave a non-committal "oh, I see" response and finished helping them. After they left, I went and told Shelly what they said about her, and she was just as surprised as I was. She had assisted them in purchasing some cigarettes a few minutes prior to me helping them, and she simply couldn't figure out what went down in their interactions that would make them say that about her. I mean, I was about 2 feet away from them for most of that interaction too, and Shelly was nothing but her usual sweet self. A little bit later, she and I and other coworkers who Shelly told it to came to the conclusion that the customers must have been salty about the fact that they had to get ID'd for the cigarettes. We get a lot of complaints about it, but it's literally just the store policy, and Shelly was perfectly polite about it. But apparently to them, upholding a store policy that inconveniences them suddenly makes her the store's answer to a warden. And honestly, we're still confused about that because she seriously did nothing wrong. Okay, I'm gonna say something that I think a lot of people can agree with, especially if you spend any kind of time in retail, because I'm convinced that customers will find any reason to complain. You could be the most polite person on planet Earth, and they will still be like, "Oh, you should be working in a prison." Like seriously, Shelly didn't do anything wrong. Just because they're following store policy and they're following, oh, I don't know, the law, doesn't mean that they didn't give you like fantastic service. Customers who complain like this are really just spoiled brats who just want to get everything they want whenever they want. And when anything's outside of their norm, then they freak out and treat you like garbage and pretend like, oh yeah, you shouldn't have a job. Because I guarantee the one time that Shelly doesn't check someone's ID, that's the time they get caught and then she gets fired. So yeah, customers like this are incredibly stupid, and honestly, Shelly did not deserve to get treated like this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for asking my friend to pay me for helping him move to another apartment? Because right now he's blown away that I would ask that, even though he charged me for snowboarding lessons not even a few weeks ago. Here's what happened. Okay, so this whole thing was about a month ago when I asked my friend, we'll call him Chris for the sake of the story, if he would be down to helping me with some snowboarding tips. For reference, he's an experienced snowboarder, and years ago he used to give private lessons as a side job. I've known Chris for maybe 15 years, and we are really close friends. He was on board, so we decided we would go to the slopes one Saturday, and he would basically teach me the basics. And I've been snowboarding maybe 3 times up to this point, and it's safe to say I'm not very good at it. However, he said he had one condition, that I would have to pay him for the lesson. Now, I was kind of taken aback by that, as I kind of viewed the whole thing as a friendly favor and just some time that we could spend together and do something that we both enjoy. Nevertheless, I agreed to give him the money, even though I don't really agree with this and would personally never charge a friend for something like this. Well, about 2 weeks after that, he messaged me saying he's moving flats, and he asked me if I would help him move all the furniture and boxes with stuff out of the flat and into the moving van. Now, I have to admit, I kind of saw this as an opportunity to see what would happen if I asked him to pay me for helping him. So, you know what? I did. I said, okay, what's the wage? He then laughed and I didn't say anything, and then, seeing my poker face, he said to me, wait, are you serious? I said to him, well, yeah, since you charged me for snowboarding, I would say it's fair that I charge you for this. He then went into a rant about how it's not the same thing at all, and then we got into an argument over that. So genuinely, am I the jerk here for asking for money to help my friend move? Because right now, I'm not sure if I did something wrong. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk here because this very easily could have been like an exchange of like services in some kind of way. Your friend could have easily said, hey, I'll absolutely help you out with like snowboarding lessons or whatever, but in exchange, could you help me move flats in like 2 weeks? Or something like that. Like this really could have been a situation where it's like, oh, I scratch your back and then you will scratch mine. Because sure, I totally understand that this used to be his side job or something he did just to like, I don't know, make ends meet, but it also sounds like he doesn't do this that much anymore, and you were literally just asking as a friend. So no, I don't think you're out of line for asking him to pay you for your time, because that's exactly what he did to you. And in my opinion, if he really wants to charge you for snowboarding lessons, then I think you're completely right for asking for money when he asked you to help him move. An entitled customer talks smack about the employees in front of their boss, causing all the work that was going to be done on his car to be delayed until weeks out, all simply out of spite for his awful behavior. Here's what happened. So my shop has a fair amount of drama lately due to the political climate, and my boss having to put up with stupid people questioning why our mechanics speak Spanish around customers. My boss makes it clear to these people to mind their own business, and if they want to go somewhere else, then Pep Boys, dealerships, and Walmart are in the next town over. That generally shuts them up because a tow to the next town over is $350 one way with a bad tow truck, and it's $500 on the flatbed. Well, in comes this entitled jerk who we will call Dan, and this dude has a stick so far up his butt, it's guaranteed to stand square at an intersection. Dan drives a new Honda sedan and somehow thinks it's the same thing as a 4x4 because he couldn't afford a truck. He basically ripped a plastic skid plate and somehow got it wrapped around one of the half sheets, making a lot of noise with a burning plastic smell. He demanded that we fix it quick because he needs to get back before he goes to LA. My boss warned him we could take it off, but there might be other damage caused by the plastic. But he didn't want to hear it, and then he turned his attention to some tech goofing off, laughing, and replying to someone in Spanish. He said something like, well, if you hired some proper mechanics, they would get stuff done faster. Well, my boss took that as incredibly disrespectful and told him right then and there that he's gonna have to wait a week, maybe even 5, just to replace the part, or he can drive it out to the next town. It's either that or he can have it towed. Well, Dan basically had to kick some rocks and leave his car, and he walked home. And now he has to wait 2 weeks for a job we finished at the end of the night last weekend, all with a replacement only costing $75, because surprisingly, he didn't do any serious damage to his car except for the plastic cover. Okay, I love this story because Dan absolutely had it coming. Just because they were joking around in Spanish doesn't mean they're not doing their job. Like, let's think about it for a second, Dan. They're probably in this job because they know what they're doing. So for you to say something like that is not only incredibly rude, but just so stupid. Like, this guy literally shot himself in the foot in terms of having any kind of good customer service. At that point, I don't blame you guys for being like, oh yeah, it's gonna take a couple of weeks. Because this guy was being super obnoxious, and in my opinion, he deserved to be punished. An entitled Karen demands that I no longer let my dog go to the bathroom in her yard ever again, which is honestly an ironic statement to make because I literally have never met this woman once in my life. Here's what happened. Earlier this week, I was walking my dog. The weather has finally warmed up to above 0 degrees after weeks of -30, so we were both very excited to get out. I was walking through a public park, basically this green space that bordered by this apartment parking lot. I know for a fact this green space is public property and not meant for the apartments only because I work for the municipality and it is our responsibility to maintain this area. Well, this entitled Karen is parked in a truck halfway on the public sidewalk and halfway on the parking lot, and she is literally straight up blocking the sidewalk. So I end up awkwardly walking around her truck in the parking lot to get around. She then rolls her window down and calls out to me. She says to me, "Excuse me, can you do me a favor?" Now, I assumed that she was just a nice lady who needed my help really quickly, so I turned around and I said, "Oh sure, what do you need?" She then says to me, "I need you to stop letting your dog go to the bathroom in my yard." Now, I was initially confused and immediately went to apologize. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, is this part of your yard?" And I pointed at the sidewalk that I was just on. She says to me, "No, my yard's over there." And she vaguely gestures at the apartment in the opposite direction. Now, I was just kind of confused and off-put, so I was like, oh, okay, sure, I guess. She then says to me, yeah, you need to keep your dog on a leash and clean up after it. Stop letting it run around my yard. And literally right now, I'm standing there with my dog on a leash and poop bags in my hand. I say to her, yeah, okay, no problem. And at this point, I was really just confused and I started walking away and laughing at her because it just wasn't worth my time engaging. And right now, I'm just so baffled. I haven't walked in that area in over a month, and my dog is always on a leash. I always clean up after her. I've never seen this lady in my life, and neither me nor my dog certainly haven't been in her yard. She initially spoke to me in a really friendly tone, and then quickly became aggressive and accusatory for no real reason. She wasn't senile either. It's not like she was just some angry old lady. She was like 40 years old. The only thing I can think of is that there's a part of the green space that some dog owners have been neglecting to clean up after their pets. So maybe she's reacting that way to all dog owners. Regardless, the attitude was unnecessary. That is not her yard, and she could have just kindly asked me to make sure I clean up after my dog, because some pet owners in the area haven't been respectful of the space. And sure, maybe she got me confused with someone else that she had seen, but honestly, I could never know because she was incredibly rude. Oh man, I can't stand when people do that. If there's one thing that lights my hair on fire, it's when I get blamed for something that I did not do. If I didn't do it and I really had nothing to do with whatever's going on, when someone blames me for that, regardless of what it is, that really pisses me off in a way that I just don't think is rational, but also it's like, why are you blaming me for this? So I completely understand where the original poster is coming from. You're literally just walking your dog. You haven't been there in over a month, and this lady's trying to be like, oh yeah, by the way, you need to stop letting your dog crap in my yard. First of all, it's not your yard, so let's get that straight. But also, what are you talking about? I don't even live here. You're literally going to a public park to let your dog walk, and this lady's trying to be like, stay out of my yard. If I was in that scenario, I would be like, oh, that's fine. I'll totally take care of my dog. But in the meantime, can you learn how to park? She is literally blocking the sidewalk with her stupid truck. Are you kidding me right now? This is a classic case of the pot calling the kettle black. So yeah, this Karen was out of line because the way she was acting was completely unhinged. An entitled Disney dad freaks out when a Make-A-Wish family cuts in line to see a character at Disney World, as he literally makes a scene about their kid cutting in line, saying that he wished that his kid had a disease so that they could cut lines all the time. And I'm honestly still blown away by this guy's awful statements. Here's what happened. Okay, so at Disney World, we have quite a few Make-A-Wish families, and if you're not familiar with Make-A-Wish, it's an organization that grants wishes to very sick children. These kids are often terminally ill, and it breaks my heart every time they come to visit the characters. Everybody in the room always gets very emotional. Make-A-Wish families get special treatment in the parks, as they should. These kids usually cannot wait in long lines, so if you have a Make-A-Wish pass, you have a fast pass for everything. And for rides, it's easy. Just send the family through the fast pass lane. But for characters, it can get a bit tricky. We have some characters that meet outside, and therefore don't have a fast pass lane. There's one queue, and you can see how many people are in front of you, since there aren't any twisty queue lines that go through a building. In this case, Make-A-Wish families just come up to the character attendant, which is the person that takes care of the character, which in this case is me, and shows us their special pass. We go over to the next family in the regular line, inform them that the Make-A-Wish family is going to cut in front of them, and after they're done, that next family will get their turn. Usually, people are hot and sweaty and tired, but they get it, and they wave me away with a quick, oh, it's no problem. Sometimes their kids get a bit frustrated because they don't understand why the Make-A-Wish kid can get to cut in front of everybody, but the parents explain that they're doing a good deed by letting a really sick kid go first. Sometimes people get huffy, but I just ignore them. They'll be fine to wait another minute. Well, occasionally people get really upset because they don't know what Make-A-Wish means, but it's oftentimes pretty obvious that the kid is very sick, so people can put two and two together with context clues, and we can always explain if they still don't get it. But for the most part, American families have heard of Make-A-Wish and know what that means. However, people can still get really mad. I had a friend who was character attending with Princess Aurora who saw a Make-A-Wish family let the next family in line know what was going on and was shocked to hear the entitled dad's response. And this is honestly one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. They say to this family's dad, I'm sorry, sir. This Make-A-Wish family is going to go first. Thank you so much for your patience. This entitled jerk then says, are you kidding me? We've been waiting forever. This is ridiculous. My friend then says, I'm sorry, sir, and then shot him a really confused look and turned away to focus on the Make-A-Wish family. This entitled Disney dad then says something that honestly blew our minds. Wow, I wish my kid had a disease so that they could cut all the lines. And he muttered this under his breath, probably louder than he intended to. Well, when he said that, everybody froze. Princess Aurora, my friend who was working, the family behind this entitled Disney dad, and the Make-A-Wish family family all turned to stare at this idiot. Aurora was pissed and said something to the effect of, well, that wasn't a very princely thing to say, before turning her attention to the Make-A-Wish little girl. Her mom looked like she was about to cry, and my friend barely kept his composure, went right over to this guy and said, I bet our friends here would give anything to be in your shoes, don't you think? The family behind this entitled jerk also grumbled about him being rude and horrible. Well, this guy knew that he had put his foot in his mouth. His daughter was oblivious to the entire thing, thankfully, as she was quietly playing with her Barbie and barely even blinked when she was told that she'd have to wait a bit longer to see Aurora. During their turn, Aurora was cold towards the entitled dad, but great with the daughter. They had a long talk about how a real princess is kind and patient and compassionate towards others. After it was all said and done, the entitled Disney dad slunk away, and I honestly hope he learned from his awful behavior. Oh my gosh, that is honestly so unbelievably horrible. I can't imagine someone being so out of touch and so obtuse that they would say something so devastating. Like seriously, who in their right mind would say something like that in front of a family who is clearly suffering? There was no reason for that kind of language or to say something like that. Like this kid is already suffering enough, and this guy's literally only thinking about the line in front of him, not about the little kid that probably will not make it in a few years, if that. What a horrible human being, like seriously. In the back of my head, I kind of wish he would have been kicked out of the park for that comment, but I can understand why he had to stay in line because that probably would have been a bad look for everybody all around. But regardless, good for everybody involved for the way they handled this, especially with Aurora basically putting this guy in his place by teaching the daughter a lesson, because that guy is an absolute monster for the things that he just said. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my girlfriend bring her dead dog's ashes on vacation? Because right now she is very pissed off and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My girlfriend and I have been together for 4 months, and she had a dog that died a few months ago before we met. I have only ever spent the night at her place. I live with my sister and her 2 kids, so it is a little chaotic at my place. My girlfriend has a small urn on her bedside table that has her dog's ashes in it, and it's maybe 2 to 3 inches tall. Before she turns off her lamp to go to sleep, she always gives it a little tap on the top and says goodnight as though she is talking to the dog. And I think it's weird, but I never have said anything about it. We were supposed to go away for the weekend, and on Friday I was watching her pack, and I noticed that she took the urn and put it in the top pocket of her backpack. I asked her what she was doing, and she said she didn't want to leave the dog behind. I told her she was not allowed to bring the urn as it made me very uncomfortable. I didn't want to see it anytime we returned to our hotel room. I didn't want her talking to her dead dog after we spent quality time together. It's weird, and frankly, she's been mourning this dog for too long. Now, she didn't argue, but instead, she simply started to unpack her bag. She told me to have fun on the weekend getaway, as she would not be coming along. I then asked if she was seriously choosing a dog's ashes over me, but she said she was choosing herself over me, as I could have spoken to her with some kindness and empathy, but I didn't. She also said that I didn't get to dictate how long she's allowed to grieve, and then she asked me to leave. She hasn't replied to my text messages, and I think she's completely overreacting. And when I talked to my sister, she said that she can see both sides of this argument. So honestly, am I the jerk for thinking my girlfriend is weird for being so attached to her dead dog's ashes? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Oh my gosh, I don't think I've seen anything so insensitive in so long. For starters, yes, to the original poster, I really do think you're the jerk, because this was so uncalled for. Your girlfriend is clearly grieving the loss of her dog. This obviously hit her hard and she's having a hard time overcoming it. So for you to literally start trying to control her life, all because you find it weird, instead of trying to understand why everything's going wrong, like that is so toxic it's not even funny. Because I know for a fact if I was in the original poster shoes, I would be trying to comfort her and be like, listen, I understand where you're coming from and I want to help. So telling her that she's not allowed to bring her dog's ashes with her on this trip, like that is not okay. Especially when this is not even that big of an urn. It's literally 3 inches tall, like that's nothing. So what if she has it with her on the nightstand? Like, does that really make a difference in your life? This is such an inconsequential thing, you really just should have kept your mouth shut and helped her work through this process of grieving her dog. So yes, you are absolutely the jerk. The way you handled this was completely uncalled for, and I don't blame her for being upset and not wanting to go on this trip. Entitled old people absolutely lose their mind anytime they find out that I'm not religious, causing them to change entirely, showing me that they were hypocrites from the very beginning. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm almost 30 years old, and I was raised by a Christian mom, and honestly, I hated it. I stopped following anything related to religion at around 13 years old, and I never looked back. I completely get why people are religious and follow a higher power, and I'm never rude when I find out someone is religious. I try to abide by their rules rules, like if there's a dietary restriction or a gift of some kind. I don't like making anyone feel uncomfortable, so I always go out of my way to understand their point of view when it comes to certain topics. But some of these older people, on the other hand, are just completely out of left field. Every time I tell an old person I'm not religious, it flips a switch in them that is honestly just so frightening, to the point where I'm scared to tell people that I'm not religious. They go from being full of smiles and kindness all the way to a massive frown, and they act like I'm Satan. I usually get hit with the biggest and longest and most boring religious bombardment by these people. And at one point, someone yelled "shame on you" in front of everyone when I was at work, and that caught me so off guard. I also find it crazy how they think it's okay to try and inflict a particular fate onto you just because you aren't religious, that I'm apparently destined to be damned for eternity. Like, brother, I was having a bad day. Do you really want to say that? Like, I don't act this way when I see someone wearing a cross. My own mother and many of my aunts are Christians, so like, I know how to act and be respectful. I don't go on any anti-religious tirades to other people. You want to know why? Because it's rude and intrusive. I'm not religious because that's how I want to live my life. Other people are religious because that's how they want to live their lives. It's now gotten to the point where, as of late, I've been invited to churches a lot more often these last 2 years, and I never get a normal response when I tell them I'm not interested. If anything, they start to push even more. Some old woman even pulled into our driveway when my dad was changing a tire and was talking about the church that she goes to and how we should join. And it's like, ma'am, thank you for the invite, but when you see a man laying under a vehicle, maybe you should leave him alone. My one uncle will once in a while send me like 30-minute videos of sermons and Bible readings or scriptures, and it literally offends him to no end when I ask him to stop sending me these things because I'm not a part of his church and I never have been. This then usually results in him sending me more religious material that are usually crudely highlighted or circled as if he's trying to teach me a lesson, and a lesson in what is honestly anybody's guess. No doubt if I send him videos about atheists or agnostics, I know for a fact he would lose his mind. I love how he no longer sees me as his niece that he can just talk to or bond with, and instead some lost soul he's trying to conjure to his following. It really sucks because I'm still a human being with feelings and emotions. I am literally no different than anyone else, other than I just simply do not want to follow a religion or go to church. Instead of sending me a funny video about a dog or a clip from my favorite TV show, he either completely ignores me or sends me some more weirdly religious stuff I don't understand, because again, I'm not a part of his religion. I just wish these older people would understand that in modern day society, people are choosing to live alternative lifestyles that are virtually harmless and leave people alone. I don't go around asking people to stop being religious. That is literally insane behavior. Some people I used to be close with straight up stopped talking to me when they found out, as if I committed some sort of horrible crime, which baffled me because I knew you were religious and I still loved and cherished you like a normal human being. I don't know, man. It all just really sucks, and I seriously hate being treated this way. Okay, I'm honestly right on the original poster's side because I cannot understand why anyone would act this way. It's one thing to tell someone, hey, you should check out my church, but it's another thing to be super intrusive in this other person's life and then treat them like garbage when they say no or they don't like follow your religion. Because that's like proof right there that you never actually cared. You only cared about them joining your church and nothing else. You were just trying to check some stupid box and that's it. And that, in my opinion, is so hypocritical because I don't know about you, but I could smell BS from a mile away, and I honestly don't care what religion it is. When someone's pushing their religion heavily onto me and I know for a fact they don't actually care about me, it is like a lighthouse in the middle of the night. You can see it from a mile away and it's like, my God, you've got to be kidding me right now. These people don't actually care about me and they only want me to join their religion for some weird selfish purposes. So yeah, these people who are treating you poorly honestly are not good people in the slightest. And I seriously do not blame you for being frustrated. Am I the jerk for not being comfortable in wearing a dress, even though my best friend is asking I wear one to be in her wedding party? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my best friend is getting married in about 6 months. I'm in the wedding party and I would be her maid of honor if not for her sister. I'm a masculine-leaning lesbian with short hair and very androgynous style. Think collared shirts and Carhartt pants. I'm a farmer and an outdoors person, and my style reflects that. I don't think I own anything that would be considered chic or nice. Needless to say, it's been years ever since I've worn a dress. When her and I have talked about her weddings, we always talked about me wearing a cute little suit or jumper type of thing, and she was always totally on board with this, saying, oh, definitely, and that this is the obvious choice. Well, a couple of weeks ago, she sent a message to all the wedding party girls that included a note about what kind of dresses she wanted us to wear, such as the length and the colors, and asking that we show her our choices first before purchasing. I then texted her on the side right? And I said, I'm okay to wear a suit for the wedding, yes? And she responded with a long message that included things like how she looked up pictures of bridesmaids with suits and how she thought it looked messy and like an outlier. She said I could wear a flowy jumper with wide legs that could look like a dress, but that it may need to be a dress for the day. I was totally surprised by this and very uncomfortable with the idea, and also hurt by the words she used to describe the assumed one lesbian and non-binary person in the bridesmaid lineup photos that she found. Now, I haven't responded yet, but the tension is palpable. I'm not even sure how to respond or if I should push back in some kind of way, but the idea of standing up there in front of so many people I know, as this is a big wedding, in a dress of some kind really just makes me cringe. My other friend I asked about said that she can't even picture me wearing a dress. I know that it's her day, and that my outfit may theoretically detract some attention from her, as I would be the only bridesmaid not in a dress. But is it wrong of her to ask me to go against my gender identity and try to comfort her just for wedding photos? Part of me feels like me wearing a dress would be equally as weird of a distraction, because everyone would be wondering why I'm in a dress, since they know me and my style and my gender expression. I don't want to rock the boat or make this about me, but I want to show her that it's disrespectful and hurtful of her to ask that of me. It feels like she wants me up there as a prop and not as my whole self. What should I do? Honestly, I think this might be a good time to step away from the wedding party and just attend as a guest. Like, if that was me and someone put me in that situation and I felt the way that you did about the whole dress thing, then I would be like, look, I understand and I really appreciate it, but I think I just wouldn't be a good fit for this and I'm just going to be a guest. And then just leave it at that, because this obviously is a sticking point for you, and I don't think compromising that in any way is going to solve things. Today, I messed up by getting a server fired over a wrong pizza, resulting in one of the most awkward lunches I've ever had eating out. Here's what happened. Okay, so I went out for lunch today at a local pizzeria. The place was packed and you could tell that everyone was really stressed out, especially the owner, who I am acquainted with relatively well. So I order a pizza and everything seems fine up to this point. Eventually, the pizza arrives and I notice that it's the wrong pizza. I order the one that's named after the owner, while the pizza that I got was the one named after the restaurant. The owner just so happened to walk by, so I let him know by saying, sorry, but I think we got the wrong pizza. He then muttered the name of the pizza and picked it up, quickly and quietly disappearing into the kitchen. As I waited, I noticed that the owner called the server who took my order into the kitchen. The next thing I heard was the owner giving this guy a severe dressing down that literally could be heard from the dining room, telling him that this is the third or fourth time in the past week that he mixed up the pizza orders and said that wrong orders are getting comped from his paycheck. He then ended it by kicking the server out. I eventually saw the server quickly getting his jacket and leaving the pizzeria. And now I feel like garbage, because I feel as if said server would still be here if it weren't for my complaint about the wrong pizza. Now, the ironic part is that I ended up getting another wrong pizza, but I didn't want to sacrifice another server over it, so I just let it go and I ate that one. The pizza was okay, the toppings were just kind of thrown on the dough, collecting in the middle of the pizza in one big pig pile. I ended up giving a big tip before leaving, but I don't think I'm ever going back to that pizzeria ever again. Oh man, this scenario is a nightmare. I'm sure all you wanted to do was eat some pizza and then get out of there. You definitely didn't plan on getting two different pizzas that were not what you ordered, while also getting someone fired in the process. Like, I don't know about you, but that's not how I would ever want to plan my lunch out. So yeah, this wasn't really a mess up on your end. I'm sure that server was probably on thin ice as it is, and you just so happen to be the final straw that broke the camel's back. Because my god, that is not a scenario I would ever want to be in. Am I the jerk for demanding that my fiance's parents change their plans to have a vacation at the same place as our honeymoon? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my fiance and I have our wedding coming up in April. We had brainstormed for a while on where best to spend our honeymoon, and we went over the more popular and well-known places, but then landed on a more offbeat destination that I felt would truly be a great place for us to start our life as a married couple. I've been looking forward to it just being the two of us, and I know he has a really hectic work schedule, and we were going to make the most out of this no matter what. A couple of days ago, he told me that his parents had been impressed about how hyped I was about it, and we're planning on going there for vacation too, largely overlapping with our dates. And in fact, they're staying at the same hotel as us. And honestly, I was livid. They can go any other time, but why right now? He said that he had suggested that, but his mom said that they had taken time off for the wedding too, and it worked well into their plans. Also, that since we're going to be going back, it will allow them to maybe see us a few times before we leave. I was almost in tears. I was so angry. He tried to reassure me, saying that they'd promise it'll be two separate things and they won't be inserting themselves into our honeymoon. They want us to enjoy it and they'd be doing their own thing. And I want to believe it, but I know his mom. I like her as a soon-to-be mother-in-law, but she can be very clingy and routinely mainly laments how far he and now us are from them. So I just have a feeling that the two plans are not going to be as independent as he thinks they're going to be. I vented about it to my parents too, and my mom agreed with me that it isn't right, and my dad is more on the fence about it as he doesn't think that everything is ruined. I've demanded my fiance make them change their plans, and he says that he asked them to, and they promised to do their own thing. And honestly, what can he do? Tell them that he doesn't believe them and call them liars? Well, I messed up here and I said, well, if that's what it takes, and then he got quiet. I realized that was too much, and I sincerely apologize for crossing a line. This has been eating me up, and I was envisioning a certain type of honeymoon, and then this happens. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I am incredibly pissed off. Oh no, you are not the jerk. This is honestly not okay. You mean to tell me that instead of rescheduling their stupid vacation, they're planning on still going while you guys are on your honeymoon? Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so uncalled for. And they're staying at the same hotel. Like, that is honestly so toxic. There is legitimately no good excuse for that, especially because they know what they're doing. And I guarantee you this is all some kind of ploy to be like, oh, we just happen to run into you. Like, no one's gonna want to go on their honeymoon and deal with this garbage. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. This is uncalled for behavior, and I don't blame you for being pissed off. An entitled realtor parked in my spot in my apartment complex and then decided to give me the biggest attitude on planet Earth when I asked him to move. So I decided to get some petty revenge by playing music as loud as possible to try and ruin this realtor's chance at selling anything in my neighborhood. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I lived in a condo where we all had assigned parking spots, and there are several visitor spots sprinkled throughout. Well, one day I came home in the middle of the weekday, and a vast majority of the parking spaces were empty. So I was very confused as to why a large, unfamiliar SUV was in my spot. Now, we get the occasional visitor that mistakenly or purposefully parks in whatever spot they want. With this in mind, I parked right behind him and approached the window to ask him how long he was planning to be there, and he said to me 45 minutes. I then asked him if he could move to a visitor spot, as there were some directly across from mine, and he said no in the rudest and shrillest voice I've ever heard come out of a man. Then he started going off about how he's a realtor, he's showing this house, you know, the door to which is directly in front of my spot. The property manager said to park here in this spot, even though I highly doubt that, and so on and so forth. So I decided that I didn't have any time or energy for Karens that day, and in the middle of his ranting, I just said okay then and walked away to go park in a visitor spot. Rude people really irritate me, especially if they're defending their awful behavior. So I promptly took my revenge. My window faces the parking lot, so I set up my speaker on the windowsill and started blasting hardcore rap music for about half an hour in the hopes that the buyer decided our quiet little community wasn't quiet enough for them. I figure the vast majority of my neighbors were at work anyways, so 30 minutes of loud music wasn't going to annoy anyone too much. So I really hope I wasted a bunch of his time, because maybe next time don't be rude to complete strangers, especially if you're parking in their spot. Yeah, if anyone's parking in my spot and then talking to me like that, I'm gonna make their life a living nightmare. Whether that's playing music really loud like the original poster did, or even calling a tow truck company, which by the way, you would have been well within your right to do. So good for you for getting back at this guy, because the way he acted was completely unacceptable. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and also please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're gonna love what they're making over there. It's a great channel and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.